Hello again, finally, everybody, and welcome to the most long-awaited Jim Cornette experience in history. I don't know if you've been waiting for it, but I've been anxious to get the fucking thing over with. Today, a potpourri of pro wrestling punditry and prognostication proffered with a plethora of profanity right fucking here. And to join me, my co-host, Hawaiian Brian, the podcasting lion, the king of the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network, Mr. Co-host to you. Woo, Missy, he ain't handsome, he just luscious. And I'm not luscious, I'm just handsome, baby. Woo, Missy, the great Brian Last, everybody.
Aloha, Jim. What a pleasure it is to be here today, finally, for the Cult of Cornette.
Oh, my God, I've had a birthday since we've been trying to do this show.
Happy birthday!
Yeah, fuck. More like it took years off my life rather than added them. Folks, we're late. We're sorry. And that's not a character evaluation. That is an apology. But numerous things have been happening, and we ought to just get it all out in the open. It's no secret that you, Brian Last, up there at Last Jam Records, have been trying to build a Caribou Ranch-style recording facility for the ages for podcasting, and you've spent a significant sum of money and invested a lot of time and effort at you and the various minions, Kippelman, Sharknado, the whole bunch of them, and you've done quite a good job. We've had a few bugs the last couple of weeks, but that's natural with the new equipment that's going in. And you got to work that out. And this time, and I was ready to blame you this week, but it appears that I may possibly have shared in some of the frustration and the nail biting of this recording process of this show. This is the third time that we have started out on this. But I've revamped some things over here also we're going to talk about. But in all seriousness, we've gotten exponentially bigger as a broadcast and with our viewer listenership and etc. than we were several years ago when we started this whole fiasco, this journey through hysteria. And so we finally decided, you made the move before I did, because you know how I hate change. Change is bad. And that is always, you can say that to Vince McMahon and he'll look at you with a shit-sniffing look, too. Because, I mean, Bruce was always like, Vince believed change is good. And I'm like, no, change is bad. You get something right, stick with it. Anyway, you took the leap before I did. And you've got some of this stuff in and you've been working the things out and etc. I have actually, more on this in a minute, I've actually committed now officially to taking steps. I will soon own a smartphone. There's a headline for you. More on that later.
Wow, that's
There's
big.
a tease. More on that later. But anyway, so you've got all this new stuff, and I've also made the motion, you know, Hotchkiss Featherbottom over here. Not only is he he's involved in that story, but also we're developing the long-awaited new JimCornette.com that I know absolutely nothing about. So that's in the works. But I've finally taken some efforts to begin upgrading the systems over here, because you've become the giant of the wrestling historical podcasting world with these various programs, the Wrestling News Archive. I have become a media darling and a social butterfly of the, for whatever reason, people now hang on my every word and cling to some hope that I can bring some semblance of normalcy and sanity to wrestling again. I'm not Merlin the Magician, by the way. But anyway, so we're taking steps to upgrade around the various projects here. Thursday, we usually record. And we had started talking, and then all of a sudden, you said, Jim, can you hear me? Yes, I can hear it. Jim, can you hear me? Yes, I can hear you. Jim, can you hear me? God damn it, I can hear you. And then so, oh, there you are. And and initially I thought that there might be something wrong up there at Last Jam, but you were trying to blame my Skype. I said, why is it my Skype when I can hear you incessantly with no interruption, no problem, but yet you can't hear me? And we couldn't and you had people under the desk there again. and we were trying to figure, and after about an hour, we would, I'm like, fuck, I've gotten over it now. Now my head is ringing and pounding, and etc. And I will be cranky, and it's late in the afternoon, and I've already watched some of this alleged wrestling, and I don't want to do a bad show. Let's work the kinks out, and we'll reconvene in the morning. Well, meanwhile, that same day here at the castle, why is it that your heat always goes out in the winter? Why is that?
Because you don't use it in the summer.
Exactly. But therefore, since it's wintertime, one of my thermostats died here at the castle. Now, I wasn't freezing to death. Everybody was fine. Harley didn't have icicles on her nose. Everything was good. Because it was only one area of the house. But since that happened Thursday morning, I had called the repair person, the repair gentleman, and I said, can you come over tomorrow? Because it's more important that we do than that I have heat, or that I do the show for the people than that I have my heat working properly. I wanted to make that sacrifice. So now we're going to do the show the same day that the repair gentleman is coming over to fix the thermostat. So I said, well, no problem, because I asked him for, early in the morning. And so we'll just delay recording a little bit. I'll get him taken care of, and then we'll record. Well, of course, they call before 10 o'clock that morning. So he's on a call now, and he'll be your next call. Oh, tremendous. So I keep you apprised. Okay, well, give him a few hours. Let's do it at 1 o'clock or whatever. Sit here, dick around. Well, can't start any other type of project that I could get in the middle of, because this guy's going to be here imminently, right? So I'm just folding towels and sitting around with my dick in my hand, waiting for this guy to show up. And which is mostly, the previous day we hadn't gotten a lot done either. So I'm like, well, this is turned into a time-consuming situation. Finally, it's come afternoon, haven't heard from the guy. We said, well, we'll go ahead and record. And when he shows up, we'll stop down. I'll deal with that. We'll come back. We'll get the second half of the show done. We'll get it out for the people. Right? We start talking. What was it? Was it 90 seconds? He said, Jim, can you hear me? You motherfucker. Yes, I can hear you. You cocksucker. Your mother should burn in hell. Was my immediate response to that. I'm like, what the fuck? Because you actually had brought a third computer into play up there, in addition to the two 5-figure computer elements that you've already got wired up in this joint. You'd brought a third into play, and you'd redone everything. And now you say, but Jim, it's got to be your Skype. Well, all right, now I guess I'll believe it. I'm going up against 3 high-priced computers and a ton of recording equipment and multiple opinions up there. So what do I do about my Skype? And you say, well, what did you say? Can you quit your Skype?
Yes, I said,
do I have to send a resignation letter to Skype?
No.
I hereby resign. What?
I wanted you to shut it down as opposed to closing it, because I had noticed that sometimes it showed you still being online when I know you weren't at your desk working. So that told me that you were closing the window, but it was remaining open. So I wanted you to quit the application.
Yeah, well, see, what I did was that I went up to the top of the corner, the top right corner where the red X is, with my little arrow from my mouse, and I clicked on that, which is the same thing that I've done every time I've got off Skype, every time I've been on it, which is that we determined that I've been apparently, how do they say it, logged on to Skype continuously for about 7 years. So apparently that's not a thing that you normally do.
No.
So I said, all right, well, you couldn't explain to me how to hang up any other way. So I go get Stacy, and she comes up here. She said, well, what's your password? So I don't fucking know. And I said, I didn't set this up. Obviously, you set it up on here. Or was it the guy that had done the website and the stuff that we did 7 years ago? And because she didn't know them. So she's trying to get the password from, who is it, Microsoft? Is that still, who was that, Bill Gates?
Yes, Bill Gates started Microsoft. He's no longer active with the company.
Well, he should have goddamn made sure that he left it in better hands, because it takes them forever to send you apparently whatever the password you needed, blah, blah, blah. But the point is, well, first she got out of it. right? And then she tried to put me back in, and then it said it didn't know who I was. And I said, well, we've been doing business for years. They ought to know who I am. And then she had to get the password, and then she got the Skype back up. And by now, I said, it's fucking almost 3 o'clock. This guy is going to be here any minute now anyway. And also, I've got a headache again. I want to be in a good mood to do this program for the people. I'm going to be cheerful. We're going to have fun with this show. We're going to have fun in a jocular manner on this program. I'm not just going to be cranky and trying to get it over with or trying to knock everything. We're going to be jocular, God damn it, if it fucking kills me.
That's my favorite part of the whole story, and I'll let you continue in a second, but each and every time we tried to do this, it started with, I'm in a good mood. Let's do this. We're going to have fun. This is going to be a great show. And usually within minutes, it was, God damn it, I don't want to do this show. I'm not going to do this. We are going to have fun, God damn it. We're going to have a happy show, and until we can do that, I'm not recording. That happened several times.
So anyway, I said, well, quit now first thing in the morning. We're going to do this goddamn thing. But meanwhile, I got to go get this guy to fix the fucking heat, because then minutes after that we hung up, where we would have been just starting recording at that point, the guy calls. He says, I'm on the way over. I said, great. I said, how long? He said, oh, I'm about an hour away. What? He was all the way in fucking Indiana. So that's the way we in the Louisville area on the Kentucky side say it, is fucking Indiana. So anyway, he finally gets here. I said, look, the thermostat just went blank, went dead. It can't control anything. We got nothing. What's going on here? Well, we'll check this out. Well, he gets in there after a while. He says, I see what it is. He said the thermostat of the thermostat ain't getting a signal because it's going through this thing here. Basically, there's a piece that he's got to replace, and then the signal will go through and a blah, blah, blah. So how much is that? Oh, like $175. It's not a major deal. It'd take about 10 minutes. Oh, beautiful. But what? Well, the parts house is only about 2 or 3 miles down the road here, but it's going to close in 5 minutes. What? So I can be here Monday? What? If he had gotten here 20 minutes early, they called me at 10 o'clock. He arrived at 4 o'clock. If he'd have gotten here at 3:40, he could have fixed it. Or whatever the fuck. He got here at 4, yeah, because it closed at 4:30. Whatever the fuck. Regardless, Monday. So we actually could have gone ahead. I could have just said, just come Monday, and it'd been the same thing, and we could have, but then I would have been in a bad mood. I said, all right, at least I'll get a good night's sleep. And first thing in the morning, I'm going to be chipper, and we're going to do this show. And I had a nice dinner, and I went to bed about 8:30, 8:45. I'm asleep. Stace came to bed shortly after that with little Harley. Everybody's snoozing. About 11:45, as I sometimes do, I wake up. I need to urinate. I don't want to be vulgar about that. I needs to urinate. So I know if I get up and do things, then I'll wake myself up and I'm up. Well, but I know how to do this. I just get up and I kind of fumble my way to the bathroom, and I keep my eyes mostly closed, and I do my business. And then I come back and I hear little Harley cough. She's got the allergies. So I reach over, still with my eyes mostly closed, and I hand her her water bowl so that she can have a sip of water. Sort of like little Harley Lou Who. And then I lay down and I go back to sleep. About an hour later, apparently, it had registered on Stacy that I had walked into the bathroom, but it hadn't registered on her that I'd come back. She had apparently dozed back off and woke up without realizing that she had dozed off for an hour, and thinks I'm still in the bathroom instead of in bed on the other side of her, which she didn't look, and she calls to me. She calls to me like a nightingale in the night. Baby! fuck, it was 2 feet right from my head. I'm like, yeah. Well, then when I do that, well, I'm behind her and she doesn't know anybody's behind her. So I go, hi, and she goes, hi. I said, what? She said, I thought you were in the bathroom. I said, I was an hour ago. Well, now, after that, she immediately turns over and goes back to sleep. But my heart is palpitating. And then I'm thinking, well, God damn it. I got to do this show today. I got to get a good night's sleep. And then I look out the window, and over at the neighbors, one of the motion sensor lights have come on because there's the poor deer in the snowy weather wandering around in the dark looking for something to eat because I hadn't gone to Feeder's Supply to get the deer food and put back there like I would have done on Friday if I wasn't waiting for the thermostat guy, if we'd have been able to record the show on Thursday. Well, and this is dwelling on me. And then I'm thinking, well, now, God damn it, I'm awake. So I go and I sit and I watch some TV. I think I'm going to get sleepy. But now I'm sitting there watching TV at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'm thinking, well, here I am doing absolutely dick all of shit, just like I got jack all of shit accomplished yesterday, just like blah, blah, blah. And by the time that daylight came around where I could go to Feeder's Supply and get the deer food and go do the errands that I was going to do Friday if the asshole repairman had come to fix the heat that doesn't work except in the wintertime because we didn't record the show. And I say, I'm not in a good mood anymore. So I called you up and I said, well, I'm just fucking pissed. And now it's a matter of principle. And now I'm going to do a cheerful show if it kills me, if it's the last thing I do. And so therefore, what?
Just, again, this is all true.
Yes.
And you angrily talking about how badly you're going to do a happy and cheerful show. It was like Chevy Chase in National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. We're going to have the happiest Christmas since Bing Crosby tap danced with Danny fucking Kaye.
Yeah.
And the family's horrified at how angry he is.
And you people out there are going to listen to the show and you're going to have to fucking have the smile wiped off your fucking faces with a sandblaster. So since I'd been up since 1:45 in the morning, by the time that noon rolled around, I'm thinking, well, it's time for dinner. But I can't eat dinner this early. And so what I did was basically, I'll tell you exactly what I did, Brian. I cleaned out some kitchen cabinets to be peaceful and relax. And then I had dinner at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, which consisted of 2 cheeseburgers, 2 andouille sausage dogs with cheese queso from On the Border, dribbled over the top of them, and French fries from my own deep fryer, followed up by a piece of raspberry cake. And then I went to bed and read, and I went to sleep at 7:30, and I woke up at 7:30. And I'll tell you what, I'm just tickled shitless this morning. I am in a good fucking mood. And I'll tell you what we did between yesterday and today. We called old Spectrum. Every time I pay my cable bill, I think Spectrum Rents used to be a sponsor of Smoky Mountain Wrestling back then. I'm thinking, goddamn, they used to send me a check. Now I send them a check. But anyway, old Spectrum called up yesterday. Stacy did. She knows the lingo. She said, we want more internet. We need to order more internet over here. We want to make sure that we're overloaded with internet. And so they sent us more internet. We put some in the garage in a box just in case. And we rerouted the routers over here. And we got more internet. And now everything is hunky-dory. Right?
Time will tell.
I swear to God, the best thing ever would have been if you'd have said, Jim, can you hear me? I would have never spoken to you again. All right. But so now we're ready to do this fucking program. We got all kinds of stuff to talk about today. And by the way, I buried the lead earlier. I don't know how elaborate of a phone that this phone that I've just agreed to purchase is going to be. But for the amount of money that we're spending on this package, I ought to be able to call Alexander Graham Bell on a personal basis and ask his advice if anything goes wrong. You should be able to call beyond the grave with this phone. But Hotchkiss has gotten a phone. What is it? The iPhone? What's the biggest number they got? iPhone number, whatever. He's got the top number. We're gonna have the tripod. We're gonna have the wireless lav mics. We're gonna have the whole fucking kit and caboodle. It's a great package that has been scouted out and ordered for the big cameos that we're going to be talking about. As soon as we get this package in and everything comes out and he sets it all up, then we're going to be circling back with the cameo people for that long-awaited project. But yeah, this boy, it ought to look network quality. I've never paid so much money for a phone in my life. Remember when phones were like $14? You plug them in the fucking wall, they last 30 years. It's ridiculous now. I will never be making a phone call with this phone. You understand that?
Are you going to be in possession of the phone, or are you going to leave Hotchkiss with the phone?
Well, it just depends. I don't know what functions and procedures will have to be done with said phone, and I'm certainly not going to be doing them. But you
can play Tetris on there. There's lots of games you could play.
I've got my fucking Tetris game if I want to play Tetris.
Okay. What do you play Tetris on?
My Tetris game that I used to carry around in the fucking car with me back in the 80s.
You still have the same one from then?
Well, why wouldn't I? Have they changed the rules?
Well, no, I just didn't know if it would still work. I mean, it's pretty old. It's over 30 years old.
When you take care of things, for heavens, I still work and I'm over 30 years old. I got a lot of things around here that are over 30 years old. My Sony HLF 1000 Super Beta machine, I'll have you know, was purchased in 1986. Better than any of these goddamn smartphones, I'll tell you that. But anyway, yeah. But we're gonna have an update on the cameos. We're gonna be putting out a limited number of cameos sometime in the first week of March to make sure that I can do them properly and it's not something I want to throw off the deck. And if the experience is pleasant, and we may do more of them. And also, we mentioned last couple of shows that we've done, the long-awaited Jim Cornette action figures, the official action figures, will be coming back in stock. They are, I am told now, floating on their way from China. Not only the Christmas variant that broke the internet last year and sold out in an hour and 15 minutes, but also the long-awaited restock of the original red and yellow version of the action figure that has not been on sale, about a year and a half now, because we ran out, and these boats are not as fast as they used to be either. But anyway, that's we're looking at mid-March from what I've been told on that. We'll hopefully have an exact date in a week or two at Jim Cornette. And we got more server at jimcornette.com. I have ordered more things in the past month. I have purchased more things that I don't have a fucking clue what they are and can't even see them than ever in my life. We bought more server. We bought more internet. I can't fucking find it anywhere.
Cloud space?
We got that too. That's right. We actually bought a fucking cloud. Can't even go visit. All right. Anyway, we got comments from the interwebs today, Brian, on the program. Because we've said some things on some shows recently, and people have piped in either tweets or emails or however the fuck they do it these days. We mentioned in the Goldberg match with the Claymore Kid himself, Drew McIntyre, we mentioned that Goldberg came to the ring with 6 security guards in a fucking empty arena in the middle of a pandemic. He was walking from backstage where we didn't even see the usual, people wandering around or standing, leaning on an anvil case or whatever. Completely empty arena, or backstage to a completely empty arena into a completely empty Thunderdome. He had 6 security guards. We questioned, what the fuck did he need the 6 security guards? Several people brought this up. And I don't know why we didn't realize it. We say this at every show. The security guards were to protect him from backstage attacks by other wrestlers. Because we've said that in the back at a wrestling show is the most dangerous place in the world, regularly.
That's true.
3, 4, 5 times a night, every show, somebody is either left laying or in the middle of being attacked on camera. And if the camera catches that many, we can only imagine how many there actually are back there we don't see. So I can understand why if Goldberg was going to come back to such a dangerous environment like that, he would require security.
That is an excellent point.
Yeah, well, I mean, it only makes sense because everybody wants to get a reputation by jumping somebody in the locker room. We forgot to even comment about this, and it's just because I guess there's so much that you can't take seriously and so much that's wrong but we didn't even mention on the whole Survivors, on the whole Royal Rumble review. Boy, Randy Orton's face healed up nicely from being incinerated with a fucking bazooka with a flamethrower 2 weeks beforehand. Who'd they have? Was that Dr. Andrews in Birmingham? It worked on his face? I thought Andrews just did orthopedic surgery. But whoever they got to work on him, do you think did they take like skin from a baby's ass and graft it on or whatever? Now that I can't stop thinking about this now. Why? What did he have the mask on Raw the previous week over the burns and etc. that you could see around the eye holes, and then he just comes out and he looks like he did when he was in fucking OVW 20 years ago. Not a scab.
That's pretty silly.
Didn't anybody think of that? I mean, we didn't even think of it because we're just so used to this all being nonsense. But you would think the people perpetrating the nonsense would at least have thought of that. I went on fucking network television wearing a neck brace, Regis and Kathy Lee, because I was pile driven 11 days previously in the Knoxville Civic Coliseum. And I still thought, well, so Randy gets his face set on fire and he's not even going to raise his hand. Sir, I bet he did. I bet he said, am I supposed to wear them? Oh, no, it's okay. It's been a couple of weeks. Those fucking third-degree burns and skin grafts, they do amazing things these days. There was another loophole that we obviously missed on this, and so many of these brilliant modern wrestling pundits out there in the interwebs brought this up. I said, Reigns and Owens, the fighting in the arena and the off the tables, through the tables and the chairs and it's just now that they have an empty arena, they just do more indie style garbage matches. They won't have a match in the ring because now they got the whole arena to play with and they're rattling the furniture around and blah, blah, blah. But it was just so we remarked on how preposterous it was. Everybody wrote back, well, but you don't understand. It was last man standing. So of course you use forklifts in the parking lot. What in the world is wrong with you? Like, I don't know if they called them last man standing matches in the territories. I don't remember that being the case, although that was sometimes that phrase was used as part of the promotion for another stipulation match, like a Texas death match or whatever. But the object, the rules, the same thing. It's Jerry Lawler and Jimmy Valiant did them, and they called them a dogfight match. You got to not, your opponent has to be down for a count. I think they did 20, right? So they could really milk it. Or whatever the match was called in the different territories or because of the different angle that somebody was programmed, somebody was involved in. The idea of winning a match by your opponent being down and not being able to answer a count of 10 or 20 or whatever is 80 fucking years old. They didn't use forklifts. Did they, Brian? Have I missed all those matches down through the last 80 years that they've been using this stipulation where you couldn't have the match without a forklift and or fighting in the upper reaches of the goddamn sports arena?
I believe that's how Fez finally put Bill Longson down.
It was the forklift.
It was the forklift. That's right. The forklift grapevine.
Yes, if it was And then he tried it again, and the second time he tried it, the goddamn forklift ran out of gas. But anyway, we weren't criticizing the last man standing concept. We were trying to explain that this has devolved into a ridiculous stunt show that looks like they're trying to have a video game fight on location rather than a legitimate contest between two people where the idea is the winner is the guy that can beat the count to his feet and the loser not, which is basically the same thing as that was the rules of fucking bare knuckle boxing in the John L. Sullivan days, where they would go, he went 78 rounds with Jake Kilrain because a round ended then when one of the contestants was knocked off his feet. They weren't set times. And then finally, when you can't get up and answer the bell, guess what? Boom. It's the same fucking thing. Forklifts were not involved. Somebody mentioned the WWE. We talked about the WWE network deal, right? And how it obviously the guys who have already been shorted on royalties and now in pay-per-view bonuses because there's no such a thing anymore as pay-per-view bonuses, and whatever. And it's devalued the concept of paying for a big match, and it's devalued somewhat paying for any kind of wrestling when you can get everything ever done by the biggest company and the biggest library in the world for $5 a month or whatever. And oh my gosh, I even had a couple people email me. They were specifically hot about, well, I just have a business background, and you obviously just don't understand that this is going to be more profitable for the company and blah, blah, blah. And the reason I did it, yes, brainiacs, did we in any part of that discussion, Brian, deny that the WWE was going to make money off the deal? Actually, wasn't that the point? The WWE is going to make money off the deal, and the boys are getting fucked.
That was the exact point. Yeah.
That was the exact point. Because somebody said, well, Cornette, you lived 30 years ago, you think people are going to buy DVDs again. That's the DVD sales. No, you knuckleheads, you nattering nabobs of negativity. No, I say. Fucking point is not what they're getting paid on, because they got paid on VHSs. I don't expect anybody to get paid on VHSs anymore because they changed to DVDs. And then they got paid on DVDs. Well, if people ain't buying DVDs anymore, I don't expect them to get paid on that. But are they getting paid on the network? Every time you order the same show on the network that you would have bought on VHS or on DVD, are they getting paid? No, because you ain't paying as much, and they ain't paying anything. And I know it's not up to the mathematics, because the statements that you get, Brian, the royalties from the WWE, royalty statements, and I've been getting these for 27 years now, they break down, for example, if you were on the greatest matches of The Undertaker, right? Well, on your royalty statement, that's a computer printout, they will write greatest matches of The Undertaker. They will have the total amount of those DVDs or units, whatever, sold. They will have the total gross money that they derived from that. They will have the code number of that particular DVD or item in their shop on that. And it's not just all of them. They break down the direct arena sales, which of course there aren't anymore, but they break down the direct arena sales. And then they break down the sales to other DVD companies and bulk sales. And they say retail sales. All this shit's broken down in different columns and everything. And they also have your royalty rate for each of those releases and the amount total of royalties that you get. So if I was on one of the matches of 12 matches of The Undertaker's greatest matches, is managing one of his opponents, and they count up all of the talent in that entire release, and they have assigned them, due to their contracts or just a standard calculation, a royalty rate. So, and if you're just minor, and then they actually go back, and I found this out when I fucking questioned them about the world's greatest managers DVD that I didn't get royalties on, and then later did after it was questioned. They've count up how much time you're on the fucking screen and shit. And then if it's a WCW clip, they just bought that outright. You don't get any royalties on that whatsoever. But if it's a WWF library, because of your contracts and et cetera, you would have to get royalties. But the royalty rate could be 0.0264, which means if they grossed $75,000 on that Undertaker DVD, then your royalty rate being that small, you might end up getting $3.27 off of it, right? But it's all broken down. So the point I was going to make is I can't believe they can't do the math on how many times those same things get played on the network. You follow? Are you smelling what I'm cooking?
Yeah.
How many times people watch those things? Is there not some talent pool? As they used to say back, they used to have a talent pool where contract guys that didn't get booked on the house show that they ran, if they were left off back in the 90s, the Attitude Era business was doing well, they would put a certain percentage of the gross of that house show into the talent pool, and guys would get $100 or $75 or $200 or whatever, even if they weren't on the show because they weren't booked. Talent, but there's some way that some of those guys could be deriving some income if they tried hard enough. And by the way, the Medusa royalty check story, I haven't told that one in a while. I'll come back to the point of this whole thing in a minute. But I told you what information they give, right? So best of Jim Cornette, total units sold 5 million, right? Total gross 7 million. Your royalty rate fucking 0.0002. Your fucking royalty $5.14, right? And then down at the bottom it would total everything. Well, Medusa hadn't worked for him for like 10 or 12 years, but she tweeted one day, "Hey, great royalty check I just got." And she had taken a picture of it where it said, it had her name, and you could tell that it was a royalty statement, but she cropped off the last 2 or 3 columns. So it looked like that they had paid her the gross that all the things that she was on had earned. It was like $225,000 for a 3-month period. And everybody was losing their shit. I said, that is so good. I've got a stooge on it because elsewise nobody will ever know that's the funniest fucking thing anybody's ever done with one of those royalty statements. Anyway, yes, brainiacs, the WWE is making money. And somebody even said, yeah, well, the wrestlers should have it in their contracts. Well, they might have back in the old days when they had stars that guys like Barry Bloom were negotiating for, Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, The Undertaker, even a John Cena from that generation, whatever. But now, since we know everybody just feels like they're fucking blessed and happy to be there because they are forced to say it on TV every fucking week, what's any of these guys going to say? Well, if you don't give me royalties on the network, then I ain't going to sign. Well, then fuck you. Go work for fucking Impact and get shot at your own wedding. Or go to fucking AEW and bounce around for a dwarf. They got no choice. Because there are no attraction. You think Brock Lesnar? Well, he got everything built in. He still gets royalties on video games and all the shit that he's been involved in at a high level, but he was making more per match than anybody ever. So he got it all built in, but he's the only guy that's got that kind of leverage anymore. And whether he does anything with them in the future remains to be seen. So the point is now it's the cast of Cirque du Soleil, literally, as we found out with old Reggie. It's the cast of Cirque du Soleil, and if one of their acrobats don't want to fucking just play ball for a flat rate, we'll get another acrobat. And besides that the boys, there's no incentive to make a major box office star anymore because there is no major box office. They think they can just do programming with a cast of characters. We're going to find out that programming with a cast of characters eventually still needs a star. Think of a fucking hit television program of the last 30 or 40 years, and you take away the main guy, and how often is it the same fucking thing? Besides that, from the fan standpoint, just mentally, the big fight has always been worth paying to see. And whether in the early days of wrestling and boxing, there were no sports arenas in the United States. They actually built outdoor wooden bleachers and stadiums to see the big wrestling matches and boxing matches. And then they'd tear them down afterwards because they did what they were set out to do. And then finally, as arenas started getting, to be a thing in the major markets, that helped the wrestling business along. But the object, whether it was boxing or wrestling, was always the big fight. In the early day, before it was to buy a ticket to see the live event because that's the only way you could. Then with television, for years, a big fight in any genre of combat sport was not seen on free TV until maybe a month after, and then the network would pay for it. But it was closed circuit. Ali and Frazier. The fucking world stopped to see them on closed circuit. And then the world stopped again to see them on Wide World of Sports a month later. And then closed circuit became a thing for wrestling. And then pay-per-view. I'm not saying everything, whether it's VHS or DVD or whatever form of video, whether it's buying live event tickets or closed circuit or then pay-per-view or stream or whatever, there certainly ought to be a way to be compensated for it for the boys. And also, there has to be some subliminal thought that this is something worth paying for. WrestleMania was something that was worth paying for. People would go to see it live and pay hundreds of dollars to get it. It was something then in modern times, thousands of dollars. But they would still pay $50 or $60 on pay-per-view because it was a big event. Now it's presented as a big event, and if you got Peacock, it's $5 a month for that and everything else that's ever been put on tape in wrestling, which to me it may get more eyeballs, but it devalues in people's eyes the value of the actual event, the stars in the main event, their ability to sell tickets if they have any. And what is this worth? My God. If you could fuck Pamela Anderson for $5 a day, pretty soon you get sick and tired of fucking Pamela Anderson.
What about the wrestlers that never signed any contracts? Because there were no contracts. I mean, they have all that world-class stuff from like 82 up.
Oh, nobody gets anything on that.
Yeah, I mean, that's bullshit. I mean, no one who was on those shows ever thought one day someone's going to take these tapes and they're going to monetize them.
But here's the thing. It is bullshit in a moral fashion, but that's why I've never supported most of the people's efforts at lawsuits, because I knew they were doomed to fruition on royalties because, and knowing this because I paid attention, A, and B, because then I've run my own companies, many of the promotions had a stamp on the back of their paychecks that was in effect a release. When you endorsed your check and put it in the bank every week, you signed a release. For years, you signed a release at Atlanta TV, TBS at Techwood, the Saturday morning or Saturday night shows. It was the pay sheet. Old Charlie McGowan would go around, sign to get paid. If you signed, boom, then you got on the pay sheet, but you were also signing a release. I agree, my likeness, videotape, blah, blah, blah. Some promotions never did that. You never signed shit in Memphis, but guess what? They don't even own their shit now. There is no Library of Memphis, official Library of Memphis. It's what everybody was able to scrounge and save. But in most cases, I'm trying not to get too technical, and it was a work for hire when you endorsed your check or you signed these releases at TV or whatever. Even if you weren't a contract talent, you were performing a work for hire, you were acknowledging you were paid for it, you were giving up your right to royalties, whether you realized it or not, because they didn't go over that with you, and nobody back in those days paid two fucks. I did from the early 80s on because I was a home video freak, but I wasn't going to goddamn go up to Jimmy Crockett and say, well, now listen, I ain't going to sign this shit for reasons I believe we mentioned earlier in the program. He would have got another loudmouth manager rather than upset the fucking whole structure of the business at that point.
Here's the Midnight Express with J.D. Costello.
There you go. J.D. was right down the road in Greenville. But so that's the thing. And when WWF or WWE now bought WCW, they bought their intellectual property and all the paperwork, which included all the releases that everybody had signed. And even though WCW was paying royalties at that point to some of the talent, the whole thing is they've got a very convincing legal paperwork trail. You weren't going to, even when we were still getting royalties of significant amount in the WWF, you weren't going to get royalties on the shit from WCW unless you were, and I'm not saying that Steve Austin may not have had something like that put in his contract, or a few of the people that came over after that, but for the average rank and file, no. But they were still paying on the last modern method of selling home video, which was DVD, when all of a sudden the network came up and they stopped paying. Now they still pay on DVDs. They just don't sell any. So, no, I understand the WWE's making money, but the wrestlers aren't. The idea of being the main event in WrestleMania for the wrestlers has gone, the goal of that has gone from, because that is where you will make more money in one day for one match than anybody else ever has in wrestling, and certainly you ever have in wrestling. That was the goal, to now, oh, it's the main event of WrestleMania. Because, wow, that's prestigious. What? So anyway, I think it devalues everything, and people once again realize, yeah, you can get everything for $5 a fucking month, except for Medusa. She's $225,000 a quarter.
But to that point, it used to be that the main event made WrestleMania draw. Now WrestleMania draws despite whatever the main event is.
Yeah, it's like, come see a movie. Well, what's it about? Who's in it? It doesn't matter. It's a movie. All righty. One more thing. I got an email. You might want to chime in on this. You got a musical background, Brian. You used to be able to play the radio. Adam wrote, "Hey there, Jim. Huge fan of yours. I love listening to a fellow student of bird law in honor of Charlie Kelly. My question is, did you hear what Chris Jericho said about how he could have replaced Brian Johnson of AC/DC, one of the greatest rock and roll bands of all time, back in 2015 when Axl Rose finished the tour that year with them due to Brian's hearing loss? Not yours, but Brian Johnson's hearing loss. I'd love to hear your take on this."
I wish I had hearing loss every time Jericho sings.
Oh, wait. I wish I had hearing loss. I'd love to hear your... God. See, I told you we were going to have fun. I'd love to hear your take on this, as I think he would have literally ruined everything that is AC/DC. You go win that pony, Jim. He actually said this, didn't he?
I saw this, and I retweeted it out because I thought it was so incredible. Because he thinks he really could. Sometimes you think, oh, he's saying something to stir people up. But this wasn't on a wrestling website. It was on Blabbermouth, which, as we determined during his Sebastian Bach feud, is a music website. So it's not like he's working them. And apparently, he really believes that he could have filled in as the lead singer of AC/DC. Spoiler alert, no, he couldn't. No one would want to see that. The AC/DC fans didn't want to see that, wouldn't want to see that, and Jericho can't sing. But again, he's delusional. Remember when Sebastian Bach called him out for being a bad singer and for singing to a track like Milli Vanilli? He tried to demonstrate he could really sing by singing on his drunken YouTube show, and that was embarrassing, and he didn't realize it.
Now, wait a minute. He doesn't have a show on drunken YouTube. YouTube can't get drunk. He was drunk on a YouTube show. But he was singing like this. What was he? It was like he was doing a parrot imitation. If a parrot sang heavy metal, it was like he was affected. What do they call it? Affecting a voice of some description. But now back up now, because you've taken over this whole topic from me because of your irrational, soulless hatred of a talented man like Chris Jericho. But not even singing it. But even if he was to think that he was an accomplished singer, one would have to admit that Brian Johnson is probably the only person who, goddamn, what was his fucking name? The original singer.
Bon Scott.
Help me. Bon Scott. Thank you. I started to say Angus Young, and that, of course, was not correct. But after Bon Scott died, was there anybody else in music that could sing those songs in that way without rupturing something and never being able to speak again? So he's not only saying he could take over for, he's not even saying I could take over for Mick Jagger. Let's face it, Mick these days takes a lot of shortcuts. Sort of, I guess that runs in the aging rock star category. He's not even saying he could take over for Robert Plant, who has calmed down a little bit from, he's saying that he could do the most violent, heavy metal, gargling razor blade vocals of all of rockdom and carry it off.
Plus, with that stage presence he has, it's like watching Michael Hayes on stage. Now! Who wants to see him prancing around the stage? Oh, my God.
Hey, the sleeves of Jericho's jacket are always tailored at the proper length. Do not confuse him with but at the same point, it appears that Chris may have gone on the Michael Hayes blowaway diet because he's expanded it at a greater way. It took Michael a long time to get as big as he is when I currently see pictures of him. Anyway, he said this seriously. I think somebody needs to do a welfare check on, at least mentally, on our friend Chris, because I would have enough confidence in my own ability in wrestling, which is what I'm good at, to say, well, I could have possibly done this manager's spot in wrestling or that manager's spot in wrestling. But that would be like me saying, well, yeah, I could have jumped right into those matches with Steamboat and done Flair shit. No problem at all. Even if Chris thinks he's, as Buddy Landell used to say, talented on a local level, I think he genuinely believes that he is the rock and roll version of an international yacht broker from Toulon, France, and he could hang with the big boys.
In, I want to say 2003, it may have been 2002, but in 2003, Sony signed AC/DC because Steve Barnett at Epic Records had a relationship with them, and he signed them. It was a pretty significant deal because you got the reissue package for all the classic albums. And they did a concert in New York at Roseland. And I got to go to that concert. And the opening act was another band that Sony had, a young band called Vendetta Red, I think. And you have never seen an audience boo and destroy a band like they did. Nothing against these guys. I mean, it wasn't a band I really was a fan of, but they didn't do anything wrong. But they weren't AC/DC. And those fans there hated them. And you could tell it affected the band and the singer. And they left, and they probably went back to the hotel and said, God damn, that's the worst experience I ever had. Now imagine if these AC/DC fans who love AC/DC, violently love AC/DC, if all of a sudden Chris Jericho shows up on stage, bloated Chris Jericho, twirling around, trying to sing like Brian Johnson. It would be a disaster. I would pay to see it, actually. I would pay to see the reaction of the AC/DC fans to Chris Jericho living out his midlife crisis on their stage.
Oh, my God. Well, you know what? I'll tell you what. If you don't want to have to worry about listening to Chris Jericho impersonate a cat being disemboweled with a rusty fishing knife, and you want to block that noise out and listen to what you want to listen to, I know who can help you. Our fine friends at Raycon, folks, the Raycon wireless earbuds. Whether you're catching up on your favorite podcast, whether you want to binge an audio book, whether you want to take a workout with a pumped up soundtrack, you stick a pair of these Raycons in your ears, it can make all the difference. You don't have wires hanging out of your ears. You don't have stems where you look like a space alien. You don't have weird things sticking out of your nose. I forgot. That's not even earbuds. That's another problem I had one time. But so there's nothing sticking out of your nose with these Raycons either, though. They're built to perform anywhere, anytime. water and sweat-resistant construction. That's a good thing because I sweat profusely from my nose. I forgot, these don't go in your nose. They go in your ears. If you sweat from your ears, they're sweat-resistant. Enough battery life for 6 hours of playtime so you can unplug all you want to, and they sound great. Not only that, but they start at half the price of the premium audio brands. So, folks, Raycon right now is offering 15% off all their products. For my listeners, the cult of Cornette, they like you. So send back the love. Go to Buy Raycon, that's B-U-Y, Raycon, RAYCON.com/JCE, and get 15% off your entire order. Anything on the site. So grab a pair and a spare, 15% off. BuyRaycon.com/JCE, BuyRaycon.com/JCE. Brian, what was the last thing I just said?
BuyRaycon.com/JCE.
Well, Brian, there's been a retirement in the world of wrestling. Some big major stars. I'm done with wrestling, done with the wrestling business. Did you hear about this? You read about this?
I'm not sure who you're talking about, no.
Well, Lars Sullivan says he is done with wrestling. I guess that's because wrestling was done with him about a year and a half ago. That might have something to do with it. But this guy, I've never met this guy, and we're going to have fun today. I have no knowledge of him wrestling the Invisible Man, but this is probably a guy, one of the guys that OVW would have saved them a lot of trouble if they still had OVW as a developmental program and I was still in charge of it, because I bet you I'd have run this guy off before he ever got there, because he seems like a mental incompetent. First, the big scandal he was in was before he was signed to the WWE, I guess even before he was signed to their developmental program, he was on Twitter, of course, like everybody was, making fairly extreme and or severe racist and homophobic comments. Not telling jokes like people accuse some people of, but actually, no, these people are bad people and bad things should happen to them and fuck these guys, right? That tone of thing. And then they found out that the guy that was making the homophobic comments was in a homosexual pornographic feature, which is nothing wrong with that, but it seems like a contradiction in your philosophy, right? And did they fine him legitimately $100,000? Is this what the amount that you heard at the time, and it was repeated here recently?
I remember hearing that, and it just seems incredible to me that it would be that amount of money, considering he was not a main eventer in any stretch of the word. $100,000 seems pretty excessive.
Yeah, I was like, what? That's fucking. I mean, it's not like that Vince has not fined people, we know, $100,000 or more before. That has happened. But that's like fining a fucking shoe shine guy $100,000. Where's he going to come up with that amount of money? I assume they took it out in installments out of his check, like Watts used to take installments of Buddy Landel's fines. But then they were still going to keep, maybe that was the thing. Hey, instead of, if we pay you $200,000 a year because you're a fucking idiot, you said this shit, we'll keep you because we had some kind of plans for you, but you're an idiot. And so we're just cutting your money in half for a year. I don't know. Anyway, after that, they keep him, but he gets hurt and he's injured. And then he's ready to come back now. But now, did he do something else stupid, or did they just say, fuck it, you're done? Did they just fire him, or what's happened here?
I'm not exactly sure. I don't even know if they fired him, from what I understand.
He just said, fuck it, I can't, I quit. Because he said he's done with it. So he quit the WWE and he's done with wrestling. The reason I bring this up is because look at this fucking guy. He's 6 foot, however much. He's a jacked up bodybuilder. And he was on the internet whining about, well, I had such horrible anxiety on TV days, I could barely eat. Wow. You know what? On TV days, I could barely eat because I was too fucking busy. Because it's fucking TV day. You goddamn moron. You fucking lunatic. I'm so anxious. And You ought to have been getting down and kissing the concrete every time you walked in an arena that you were still had a fucking job and they were going to let you do this a little longer. I couldn't believe that when I heard that. Oh, I just couldn't barely eat on TV day. This is when Undertaker said, oh, everybody's soft in wrestling, everybody took it a different way. But I take it this way. This fucking clown, he never had to fucking work independent shows. He never had to work in the territories where you worked every single night. That's how you got good. But it would break you if you were a mental fucking snowflake that got anxious on TV day and he could barely eat. You didn't have time to eat. You didn't eat on TV day because they had no food in the fucking building. You ate on your own time before you showed up to work. Now they fucking sit around in catering that looks like Morton's Steakhouse at these WWE tapings, and they fucking are anxious. They have to go out there for 6 fucking minutes and do something. It's fucking ridiculous. This guy never had to fucking pound the fucking roads in the territories, or he never had to work independent shows for a bunch of fucking people that didn't know what the fuck they were doing with a bunch of people that didn't know what the fuck they were doing. He was handheld through the WWE training system. He was always on a contract. They even gave him another chance when he was obviously a fucking moron on the internet. And then he's just so fucking worried and anxious that he can't eat at TV. God damn it. I remember at some points in my career over the last 30 years, I would have taken a fucking knife to somebody to steal their fucking food at TV tapings. But between managing or fucking working or promoting or booking or announcing or whatever the fuck, I was busy concentrating on what the fuck I was doing. Pete. So he's done with wrestling, Brian. Should we bake a cake or should we play some sad music?
I think we should just shrug and move on.
Maybe we could get one of our talented artists like Einar or Rocky or Nate, any of them to make sad music for when somebody decides they're done with wrestling because it's just too tough on them and they just get worried and anxious about it. I got, as a matter of fact, an email from somebody that might be the next person that we would need to play that music for. Your favorite wrestler, Brian, Jane Cargill.
Jade?
Her too. I'm saying that she will crack up because here's the thing. They are apparently going to follow through with this match between Cody and Red Velvet, or as Shaq calls her, Pumpkin Pie. And Shaquille O'Neal, who's had one flirtation with doing something in wrestling at a wrestling show once, and Jane Cargill, who is, if she's had a match in front of people, we haven't found it yet. She's just been training. They're really going to do this. Well, Trey wrote in, Dear Brian and Jim, why he put your name first, I'm not really fucking sure. And I've got a problem with Trey over that. But dear Brian and Jim, just thought I'd give my 2 cents on everyone's favorite AEW acquisition, Jane Cargill. I was actually an assistant basketball coach when she played basketball in high school. I had no idea what had become of her until I saw her first appearance on AEW. I was shocked to say the least. I didn't recognize her until they said her name. Then I had to Google her to make sure. She was always a good athlete in school, was a great rebounder, but was a little soft around the middle. She was also relatively quiet, always a nice girl and worked really hard. But this transformation is shocking to say the least. I don't recognize this girl physically or personality-wise. Well, maybe that's because she's putting on a personality, obviously. Would anybody act that way on purpose, completely lost and like a deer in the headlights? And I don't mean that in a bad way, he follows it up. It's just different than the person I remember. But I must say, like Brian, I want to see more and more of her on AEW. I hope she can get her promos down because she could be a big star. Love the show, guys. Listen all the time. Just my cheap 2 cents. Thank you, Trey. And, we've blistered old Jane because her debut was so spectacularly bad and awkward. And it's obvious that she's been put in a position that you can tell she's certainly not a lifelong wrestling fan. And whether she's a good athlete or not, and whether she's eventually going to be a good wrestler or not, I would think everybody can agree that there's no reason to expect that she should be now, because she's never had a fucking match. She'd been in wrestling school. And if she's a good athlete, maybe she can do these things. Maybe she's just looks so awkward because they're having her be a personality that's different, or she's having to talk on national TV when she's never done that before. All of those things will fuck with you. But I'm just struggling with trying to figure out if they're really going to have a real match. What is Cody thinking? I know it was supposed to be Cody and Brandy first, and I don't know what he was thinking there, because it's not like Brandy's goddamn Chigusa Nagayo, right? And actually, probably, even though Red Velvet is a more recent acquisition to wrestling, doesn't have as much experience, she's probably a better wrestler than Brandy. Be hard not to be. But what is he thinking, putting himself in a tag team match with a partner that's a girl that's been wrestling for a few years at most, against Shaquille O'Neal, who is, how old is he? He's in his 40s, right? Easily. And even though he's a great athlete in his own fashion, has never done this before.
48 years old.
Okay, nearly 50. And a girl is a partner who is not yet officially out of wrestling school. And they're going to do this now, and not even on pay-per-view. Let's make people pay to see this if there's any train wreck intrigue to it, and that's the kind of intrigue that would be to it, a train wreck intrigue to this. Let's make them pay. Let's put it on free TV and let anybody for nothing tune in to see how fucking bad this could go. Does Cody feel like it's a test if he can pull it off, if he can choreograph, lay out in his head, produce, and perpetrate something with three almost completely novice participants? He'll consider it the greatest accomplishment of his life or whatever, but that's a heavy fucking and here's the thing, you can tell from the comments, we'll talk about this later on in the AEW program, Shaquille's just doing this as a fucking rib. He don't give a shit. He's not taking it seriously. It's a plaything for him. He didn't do the promos like he was serious, is like joking around about, yeah, I'm going to do the wrestling, that type of thing. He's not taking it seriously. Will he know whether or not what they're doing sucks, or is it just that since he's just going to get a kick out of it, he doesn't care how silly it is or how much it falls apart because it's all a lark? The two girls will probably be dedicated to trying to do it well, which is why especially nerves in one or both of their cases will take over. Are they selling a train wreck on free TV because since a lot of their show is so unintentionally bad to begin with that they don't care if something is a laughable embarrassment and falls completely down the shitter, they just want people to watch the TV show? These are a lot of questions to ask.
I believe it's going to be on free TV because of a scheduling conflict with Shaq, where he couldn't appear on the pay-per-view due to the NBA playoffs.
Oh, shit. I was out at the beach and I looked down and I found this Rolex watch. And now I could either sell it or give it away for free. Well, I can't sell it on the exact day that I wanted to sell it on, so I'll just give it away.
Now, you know Cody's in him and QT's gym working on this match. I mean, whatever that match is going to be, I would have to guess.
How many practice sessions do you think Shaquille O'Neal is going to fucking dedicate to this?
What do you think Shaquille's going to do? Will he do a leapfrog?
Well, goddamn, he wouldn't need to. Cody can just duck and fucking run through between his fucking crotch. I'm just saying, here's the thing, and Shaquille may want to take it seriously just because it's an athletic thing and show he's a badass or whatever. So Cody and Shaquille might be okay, but I've seen, remember that we talked about the poor Charmel. Charmel, Booker's wife, trained in OVW for a while, had trained to wrestle, was involved in the WWE for a while, and they put her in, and she'll say herself that she was never Mildred Burke, but they put her in with that fucking idiot survivalist, the Survivor Was it Survivor? One of the reality TV shows. That twat from reality TV, Jenna Maraska. And that was one of the most embarrassing things I ever saw from TNA. And imagine how much money or time and effort that fucking takes in. The most embarrassing thing. But I'm just saying nerves may take over. Who knows? Jane may turn into the original Master Blaster and just fucking freak out in the middle of the ring. I saw that. I was there that night.
I think she's going to do a good job because they're practicing this match. Whatever this match is, no one's calling it in the ring. It's all going to be scripted like a Dallas Page match or a Randy Savage match.
Okay.
Move 1, move 2, move 3. I think that they're going to do everything they can to make this match really good. Now, we can question what this match is. Shaquille O'Neal, major star, although maybe a bit overexposed right now, but a major, major star. They announced they have Shaquille O'Neal. Great, what are we going to do? Oh, we're going to fuck everything up. And then we'll have the match. Because the build-up for this match has been atrocious. Even if Brandy didn't get pregnant, the build-up for this match was horrible.
And nobody even understood whose side they should be on.
No.
Because they were all acting like idiots. But I'm just telling you, Jane, the Master Blaster, I go back to that. I saw that. He was fine in wrestling school. But then, and I hope everybody knows what we're talking about. Nash has told this story, but real quick, we're in the Cobo Arena for WCW in Detroit in the TBS days. Brad Armstrong and Tim Horner against Kevin Nash and whoever the original Master Blaster guy was, whatever his name was. And Nash has told this story, and it's been told around several places. If you couldn't work with Brad Armstrong, you couldn't work at all. And if you couldn't work with Horner, you couldn't work with all. He just couldn't sell any tickets. That guy tried twice in a row to do a spot with Tim Horner, and he couldn't fucking get it. And then Horner tagged Armstrong in. And Brad, he tried twice in a row to do the same spot, and the guy fucked it up 2 different ways. And finally, I was standing in the back of the Cobo, and you could tell it was almost like this guy was screaming in your ear. By his body language, you could hear what his thought was. He just turned to fucking Nash in the middle of the ring. Never seen anything like it. Put his hands out to his sides like this, like, what do they want from me? And after that match, he fucking packed his shit up. He went to the bus station. He took a bus from Detroit to wherever he was from, and we never saw him again. That could be what happens to Jane Cargill.
You say he messed up the spot. For the record, the spot was a headbutt. He had to fall to the mat and have his head come somewhere near his opponents. That was the spot he couldn't do.
Yeah, no, these things, it was like hip toss and tackle. No, he just lost his mind because it was another one of those bodybuilders they had found, and there you go. Anyway, Jane, we'll see what happens.
Why won't you call her Jade?
What?
Why won't you call her Jade?
Well, should I call her Jade, even though her name is Jane?
Her name is Jade.
I clearly heard her the first time when she did that tremendous debut interview and almost forgot what her name was. She said Jane Cargill.
People can make mistakes.
I stand by that. Speaking of making mistakes, should we go into this now? Uncle Dave, I just blocked him on Twitter. I didn't just block. I simply blocked him because it was so tiring. I couldn't deal with it. And we've had a lot of people since then go, why wouldn't he leave it alone? Why won't he leave it alone? But this reached new heights of screaming, stalkerish Brian, I think you're going to have a fucking rabbit boiling in a pot of water in your kitchen when you come home one of these days. He will not leave this alone. When you are not speaking to Dave Meltzer, when Dave Meltzer is not in your conversation, when you are not giving an opinion on anything that he has done or said, or saying anything that has remotely any topic whatsoever to do with him, but you just express your opinion on AEW, whether it's you or me or anyone else in the world, he will find you and hound you till you can't go to sleep. And now he's doing it to you. Why?
because I had the audacity of saying something negative about AEW. I feel like one of those fans, like a fan in Altoona or Beckley. I was just over here minding my own business when all of a sudden this guy started whacking me over the head with a tennis racket. But in this case, I literally was over here minding my own business. I watched the AEW show, which I'm sure we're going to talk about later in the program.
Yeah, unfortunately we will.
I thought there were a couple of segments that were all right. I thought there was a whole lot of crap. And I think overall, when you look at AEW, there's a lot of weeks where there may be something all right, and there's a lot of crap, and segment to segment, it's a badly put together show. And what I tweeted out, I have it right here, I pulled it up. There are fans who really like some of the wrestlers in AEW. There are fans who really enjoy the style of matches in AEW. However, I can't understand how anyone finds Dynamite to be a good wrestling TV show. It amazes me how poorly written and booked the show is almost every week. Now again, I'm saying I know that there are people who love Dave. Dave loves those matches. The Young Bucks have a 13-minute opening match, 4.5 stars. He loves those matches and those style of matches. He loves a lot of those wrestlers there. Kenny Omega. Kenny Omega got put in this position because Dave really anointed him as the great wrestler of our modern times, and Kenny ran with it. Dave likes a lot of those wrestlers. And again, I'm saying I understand there are fans of these wrestlers and these matches.
But did you mention Dave Meltzer in this tweet?
No, I did not tag Dave. I did not mention Dave. I literally just read you the exact tweet. And it was my thoughts after watching this AEW show, which was a disaster. Because they're always a disaster. Segment by segment, it's a poorly put together show. I have seen wrestling shows that are coherent. I know the difference between a coherent show with a good booker, or even at times a booking committee, and a show which doesn't make much sense as a show. That's my point. When you look at it as a wrestling television show, it's poorly put together. So Dave responded to this out of nowhere, and he quote tweeted it. Because
Dave KO, out of nowhere.
He said, digging in your heels every week to convince yourself you're right is a bad look. But at least don't do it after the last 30 minutes of tonight's show. You have to learn to pick your spots. So I responded to that saying, digging in my heels, the show sucks, Dave. Almost every week. If you like those kind of matches, then you like those matches. But the show is poorly put together. You can admit it. Tony will still text you. A bad look is constantly looking to defend an overall poor product. And again, to the initial tweet here, Dave wasn't tagged in it. I didn't mention Dave. I didn't tweet it at Dave. Dave saw this and decided to lecture me because that's his role now. If you ever notice on Twitter, it's, it's very sad that you don't, accept this. And
yes,
I just want you to learn. I'm just trying to teach you. I just want you to learn.
That's his big thing. It's so condescending. Well, if you just can't learn, which is why I finally had to tell him to go piss up a fucking rope after all these years, because he got so fucking just annoying with this shit that even his friends that have known him forever can't figure it out. And also, to be quite honest, before you continue, the last 30 minutes of that program contained a midget duct taped to a chair, a jelly Nutella promo, and a fucking 6-man tag that lost all semblance of making any kind of fucking sense and just degenerated into a fucking mess of moves. And he was crowing about that, but go ahead.
But again, if you like spots, if you like tricks, then that match, I can understand why someone would really like that match. And even if you really love that match, my point is the entire show put together as a well-booked, coherent wrestling television show, it's not there. That's my point. And I'm giving everyone every caveat they want. I like the wrestlers, I like the Young Bucks, I like the flips. Okay. But look at it as a wrestling show. Look at it as
any kind of show, if it makes sense from top to bottom, week to week.
And by the way, on the topic of digging in your heels, you dug a hole with Jim and you kept digging and digging and digging. And then finally Jim started putting dirt on top of the hole that you dug yourself into. But he then wrote to me, forget about me. Every magazine and major poll this year had it for the best TV show of 2020 by a wide margin. only show to hold up during the pandemic and taking away the live audience. To which I replied, a show can be better than Raw, SmackDown, NXT, and the others and still not be very good. As I originally said, liking the wrestlers, the style, and the matches is one thing, but pretending it's a well-booked, written show is another. It's consistently a mess. And I think that's part of the thing. Dave was very condescending with, it's a bad look for you to say these things. And again, he dives in, and I know plenty of Dave's friends who say, I don't know why he argues with people on Twitter about AEW when he has nothing to do with the discussion, and he just dives in and does it.
He will find you if you criticize his play friends. But also the polls that they won are like a poll of all the people who suck dick. Do you like the taste of cum? You're going to get a high fucking approval rating. It doesn't necessarily mean you've taken in a wide swath of fucking mainstream humanity.
And then I saw some of his other tweets, which I wasn't, because he didn't tweet back at me because I was waiting. I was like, I'm not going to sleep because I'm not going to let him hit me. And then 7 hours later, I see it and I can't reply in real time. I said, I'm going to give him some time to see if he wants to come back because I know he likes to get the last word in a very condescending fashion. I'll get the last word. It won't be as condescending. It'll just be straight to the point and true.
Oh, it'll be condescending too.
No, I don't condescend. I kind of just say the way it is. But he didn't respond to me, but he started then arguing with other people, just random people who dove into this. And then the conversation turned to, well, look at how successful they are. They were averaging 6,000 people at their shows, and there's never been a startup that's had this success. So then it became, the argument started with, the show is a poorly booked and written show. Then it became, well, look at how successful they are. Look over here. Look at the bird over here. Forget about that. Look over here.
Hey, the Kardashians are on television, for fuck's sake. Whether it's quality and whether it's profitable is two different things. And he keeps conflating the two or confusing the two because that's his go-to when you point out that, God, this could be so much better with anybody that knew what they were doing in charge of it. But it's making money. Yeah, because all the other shows are rotten too, and the bar is lower. But if you want the only show that didn't drop during a pandemic, for the people who like this kind of thing, that's the kind of thing those people like, and they have the same number of people watching right now as they did at the start, and vice versa, because that's the number of people who like that kind of thing. The average person and even an average wrestling fan's not going to watch this fucking television program. But Dave takes it fucking personally if you either express your opinion or state a fucking observable, demonstrable fact. I don't get it.
I get it. I mean, look, he loves the Young Bucks. He loves Kenny Omega. He loves what these guys do. He's friends with Tony. He's been knowledgeable about everything going on with AEW since the very, very beginning. I'm not one of these people that believe he's been secretly paid by Tony Khan. I just think this is what he likes. If you read The Observer, and I've read every single issue of The Observer, this is the ultimate culmination of what Dave likes in professional wrestling. He was someone who always liked lucha libre and high spots more than, big angles, for instance.
But, and we won't make this a goddamn giant dissertation for the next 45 minutes on Dave's psyche, but he liked the action matches. And again, maybe he never liked wrestling like this, but there never was wrestling like this. Nobody was ever allowed to have matches like this for obvious good reason. And he always seemed to have a grasp on wrestling psychology and made fun of the silliness. And it seemed like he had a good grip on what the business was. And you didn't have to argue with him on silliness like this because, as I mentioned, there was no silliness like this. But then suddenly he's gone to the point where the two things are mutually exclusive. You cannot have the opinions, the values, the concepts, the mental grasp of this industry that you had and that you demonstrated 20 years ago, 25 years ago, 30 years ago, and still excuse and or tolerate what's being done to that industry by these fucking jackoffs with no goddamn pride or self-respect. It's just a shit show. He's gone from defending wrestling against people that knocked it and hated it and didn't understand it to now saying the same things about wrestling that those people said, because it's the same people that now are saying those are the ones who don't understand wrestling but say they love it and are actually running it. I've always heard a leopard doesn't change his spots and an asshole's always an asshole, and people are the same down deep. They don't fucking change. I'm sorry. Same down deep. But he's the only one that's ever proved me wrong. Because he's fucking flipped.
And it's all because you did not just accept the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega as being the greatest things in the world. And
yes.
It's just, it's ridiculous.
And it drove him out of his mind, and he would not leave us alone until finally I told him off and blocked him. Now I suggest that you just block him.
I'm not going to block him.
There's no other goddamn way around it. If you say anything remotely resembling a fucking insult about his precious friends and play friends in AEW, he will harass you, and then you'll stay up at night. It's easier just fucking tell him just bother somebody else.
It's not a good look. Don't tell me what's a good look and a bad look, Dave. Do me a favor.
And hey, if anybody doesn't believe that I tried. I was one of the last ones that kept trying to defend, because everybody like fucking bitch off, and Bruce and all those people who said that Dave was lying all along 30 years ago about all the things he said, but they're full of shit too. They're liars. Dave isn't a liar. He's lost his mind about this particular thing, but he's never been a liar. And I would defend him against that because I knew the fucking truth, and they were saying those things for their purposes. And I said, that's not right, and would illustrate those things and try to defend him. And I even went so far as to say over the last few years, Dave's historical knowledge is unmatched. Dave talked to so many people that he understood the fucking psychology of wrestling, and he's seen more matches over the last 40 years than almost anybody alive. And all those things were true. And that's why I couldn't explain his sudden tolerance for this fucking English music hall comedy bullshit, and thought it had to be, because they were his personal friends, because how else do you explain it? And we laughed it off. Weed's legal in California. And he wouldn't leave it alone.
That was literally the worst thing you said about him.
That's the worst thing I said about him. And that is documented, which is where I was going with this. And he would not leave it alone and kept insulting me personally to the point where I had to fucking tell him to goddamn quit. Just don't acknowledge my existence, motherfucker. We will never speak again. Fuck you. Fuck what you said about me, and fuck what you said about the Midnight Express, comparing them to the Young Bucks. They never did a goddamn thing to you to be insulted like that. And I had to tell him off, and we're not going to ever speak again, and he doesn't exist on this planet to me, because fuck him. He wouldn't leave it a fucking alone. And finally, friendship only goes so far when a motherfucker will not quit poking you. But if anybody does not believe what we are saying is true here, I invite everyone to go back in the archives, whether it be YouTube over the last few years or whether it be the Patreon, where we have our shows in order from the start, from our meager beginnings in 2014 to we're almost done with 2016 now, right?
We're in the middle of 2016.
In the middle of it. And more added every week. And you can follow along with how I tried to be nice to Dave Meltzer for years and years until his ridiculous statements and whiny old fucking woman behavior led me to just tell him to fucking piss the fuck off. How do they find the Patreon, Brian?
Patreon.com/Cornette. For only $5 a month, you get access to the archives from the beginning in 2013. Right now, we are uploading shows from the spring of 2016, new episodes added or classic episodes added each and every Sunday night. But you get to hear a lot of things as they progressed in the world of Cornette, from Jim's thoughts on the Young Bucks and Joey Ryan and Kenny Omega, good wrestling, bad wrestling, his relationship with Dave Meltzer and others, Patreon.com.
My relationship with. We were never engaged. It was never official. It was just a thing, a fling we were having.
And Dave's saying, here's the quote, digging in your heels every week to convince yourself you're right is a bad look. That's like the pot calling the kettle a pot. Look in the mirror, Dave.
Well, besides that, I've never had any trouble convincing myself that I was right. I've never had to convince myself I was right because I've usually been right.
I'm not trying to
talking into it.
I'm not trying to convince myself I'm right. I just watched the show. I know I'm right in what I think about the show. Convincing myself I'm right. You know, I've seen where he says when people say, "Oh, you kiss AEW's ass," he goes, "Well, it looks like you've never read an issue of The Observer." Well, I have. Like I said, I've read every issue of The Observer. Going back to the beginning.
And there's been shameless puckering up and kissing of the buttocks and filleting of the penises and tongue boxing of the fucking sphincter hole and everything else that you can possibly do.
When WWE does something really bad, Dave will talk about how bad it was. I actually there was one specific example. I said, I want to see how Dave covered this. Because I know Jericho's his boy, and Jericho gets protected in The Observer. When they did the Inner Circle in Las Vegas in the middle of the pandemic, and they did 2 or 3 segments on the show that were just awful. How was it covered in The Observer? He literally just reported it. And then they woke up and there was a midget there, and they appeared to be drunk, and they were teasing Wardlow and Jake Hager. Nothing about this was really, really bad. It was bad comedy. Nothing about the fact that they went there in a pandemic. Nothing. Nothing at all. It was just reported like it was a match. And then they went to this move, and then they went to this move. And I think Dave has very little self-awareness when it comes to the way he acts in regards to AEW. And it's ridiculous. And I like Dave. I've always liked Dave. Although I don't know where we are right now, because this is now a few times recently where he decided to dive in on me and I hit him back.
That's because he knows I can't see his shit, and he thinks you'll tell me. Because I'm telling you, one of us is going to end up with a boiling rabbit.
And he listens to the show every week, which I'll just say I know he listens to the show every week. That's the other thing. And when it comes to the other point, I just want to say one more thing, and then you can move forward. The idea that with AEW, name one other startup that has ever been this successful in wrestling, or one other startup in the last 30 years. I forget what the qualifier is. Okay, Dave, name me one other startup where the head of the network greenlit a show because the son of an NFL owner who he knew came to him. I mean, the relationship's there.
At a party.
Name one other startup where there was a fully formed and popular independent wrestling movement to cherry pick wrestlers from. Name one other startup where you had major talent at the beginning, the likes of a Chris Jericho and even Moxley, who's super over with that audience and right off WWE TV. You can't compare this to other startups. You can't compare this to the UWF, to Herb Abrams' UWF.
Hey,
with the exception of the show, with the exception of the booking.
Wait a minute. Name another startup where the fucking network executive that was approached about having the unknown wrestling show that was only a concept didn't even know that TBS had Vince McMahon's only competition 20 years beforehand because he was only like fucking 12 years old at the time.
The son of a billionaire who owns the Jacksonville Jaguars, and owning an NFL franchise is still a major deal in society, went up to this guy and said, "Hey, you guys used to have a wrestling show." He goes, "Oh, if you want to do it, I'll consider it." Yeah.
We did? Yeah. The son of a bitch. Why don't we now?
And you want to talk about Newark, the show that never happened. They were going to do a big, big house in Newark because this is the Northeast. And at least the first few times, the Northeast will support something like AEW coming into town and really boost it up. They would have a big house, big gate. Look at some of those other shows. They were drawing nothing all over the South. Nothing. There were empty seats everywhere on TV. But again, they would do their major pay-per-views and fans would fly in from around the country. And then Dave says, well, they never did this in Mid-Atlantic or Mid-South where they had this ticket demand. Yeah, because they never had fans flying in from around the country because they knew about the show. But also,
we were running Spartanburg every 2 weeks. What the fuck did they need to fucking fly to Spartanburg for?
But, again, based on Dave's argument, the Black Eyed Peas are more successful than the Beatles because they sold more downloads than the Beatles, who, of course, at their peak, there were no downloads. And the Beatles sold more records when they were alive than Mozart did when he was alive because he didn't have fucking records. But, again, Dave loves AEW and he loves the Young Bucks and he loves Kenny and he loves Cody, and he loves Jericho, and he has a good relationship with Tony Khan, and he gives them the benefit of the doubt on everything. And there's never any spoilers in The Observer about what's going on in AEW because he's too close to it. And the fact that he dives in on someone like me for talking about a bad show right after it aired, there's no self-awareness with Dave right now. And I've like I said, I've always kind of defended him with a lot of the different things. He definitely, and this is an opinion I think that not everyone has, he ruined his relationship with you, and I saw it in real time because I talked to you off the air, where he just took shot after shot after shot on his message board and on Twitter. And, of course, everything gets back to you and you hear about it.
Well, yeah, people send it to me and they go, what the fuck is his issue? I wasn't even speaking to him.
And the worst thing you had said...
He was a PR guy.
The worst thing you had said at that time was that marijuana is now legal in California. But really, the worst thing you said was that Kenny Omega was a piece of shit and that the Young Bucks weren't your favorite because Dave anointed them as being the top guys. And you rejecting that, I think, is the worst thing you could do to Dave because you're rejecting his opinion and his thoughts about modern wrestling. And I've seen this. I actually found a letter in the Keitzer collection that he wrote Norm Keitzer, 1984. Just, it's a crock of shit what you say in the magazine about this, this, and this. Because it didn't match Dave's worldview of wrestling.
Wait a minute. I got to know, do you remember what was so offensive to Dave that Norman Keitzer, the most inoffensive, genteel individual in the history of the world, would have written in his magazine?
I will find it and I'll let you know. I don't have it.
We got to send that out we got to send that out on Twitter. You know what would help Dave Meltzer? Better digestion. I think he is constantly suffering from the sour belches, because Dave was always a physical fitness addict, and he worked out a lot. He always kept himself in great shape, but now that he's so fucking old, his social security number is 3, and his birth certificate was chiseled into granite with a fucking chisel. If Dave had better digestion and didn't have the sour belches, didn't have such a peptic disposition, Brian, I think he would enjoy the wrestling that he always enjoyed instead of this new stuff. And you know how you get better digestion? Athletic Greens. Folks, Brian's told you he always hated the juice. He got spray everywhere on the kitchen walls. He had to get all the fruits and the vegetables and everything from the store. It was a mess. You had to clean up, run the dishwasher. I've mentioned that I just basically wasn't ever going to go through that much trouble to begin with. Well, now both our problems are solved. And yours can be too with Athletic Greens, because it's a mixture. You just add water. You shake it up in the shaker they send you, and you gulp it down, and you have just gulped 40 fruits, vegetables, and botanicals with added vitamins and minerals, prebiotics, probiotics, digestive enzymes, and much more that costs less than a cup of coffee a day, especially the coffee that Brian last drinks. Folks, like we said, just add water and shake it up. Multivitamins, multiminerals, green superfood blend, all the stuff that is going to help you support a healthy immune system, increase energy and focus, aid with digestion, the whole 9 yards. And you got to keep your immune system up, especially because we are only beginning to fight the pandemic now after over a year. So you got to keep your digestive system and your immune system up with Athletic Greens. And if you go to athleticgreens.com/JCE right now, you can get a free year's supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packs. So keep up on the vitamin D for the immune system, 5 free travel packs if you're on the go. And whether you eat the keto-free, paleo-free, vegan-free, dairy-free, gluten-free, wherever you eat free, this is it for you. And there's less than a gram of sugar, but it still tastes good. athleticgreens.com/JCE. 5 free travel packs and a free year's supply of vitamin D with every order at athleticgreens.com/JCE. And it makes you poop better.
You have said that before, and actually the other day I was preparing my Athletic Greens, which I drink every day and I love them. And I was in the kitchen and I was talking to Suzanne about it, and I just said, I don't know why it made me laugh. I said, Jim says they make you poopular. And she said, what? I said, I was embarrassed. I was like, he said they make you poopular. And that's it.
And then she said,
that's
what?
the end of my story.
That's the end of the story. It sounded better when I said it. Do you pop out at parties? Are you unpopular? Well, somebody else is popular. Somebody else is in the news. Many people have tweeted and Cornette, you got to say something about this. Cornette, we want to hear what you got to say about this. You, Brian Last, said, no, I don't want you to say anything about this. Apparently you don't trust me to not say something to get myself in trouble, but lots of people out there want to know what I think about the former artist formerly known as Tyler Rex. Are you going to?
I will say, I urged you not to speak about this on the air.
Putting a blanket over your head and covering yourself now?
Being afraid of what you could possibly say, even if it was something benign that people will run with and try to burn your house down with. I was worried about you talking about this on the air.
Well, no, because it's a thing that's happening, and people have asked me about it. And for whatever reason, people, oh my God, people just got to know, so I'm going to tell you. And for the people who do not know why they are asking, and Tyler Rex was a wrestler that competed for the WWE, a few years ago, right? Because the way I heard about this was I saw a headline on somebody had tweeted saying, what do you think about this? A headline, WWE superstar Tyler Rex has transitioned from a male to a female. And I honestly I'd read the name Tyler Rex on the internet. I did not remember seeing Tyler Rex. Tyler Rex was around when we weren't watching those shows. We weren't reviewing those programs. Everybody knows there's a lot over the last 15 years of WWE that I have not seen. So I'd heard the name, didn't have any idea what Tyler Rex looked like or anything about the person. Had no pre-notion, have never met them, have never seen the matches, whatever. So I said, okay, I didn't know what Tyler Rex looked like. So and also, to be quite honest, when I first saw it, I said, wait a minute, is this one of these internet headlines? I'm not just going to jump in on this. What the fuck's going on here, right? I need more information. So then come to find out that, yes, that is legitimate, because then more mainstream story came along that was legitimate and had details and etc. So apparently Tyler Rex, and that was not his real name, shockingly enough. That was a stage name in the WWE. But his real name was Gabe Tufts. Tufts. I still can, Tufts. I'm not messing that up on purpose. Gabe Tufts was the real name of the person that played Tyler Rex in the WWE. And I saw the picture of Tyler Rex. He's a jacked up bodybuilder. Long dark hair, a beard, and I'm still thinking, wait a minute, is this a rib? How I can't see how this could have happened. But there's the article. You read the article. It's legitimate. I guess he's been out of wrestling for a couple of years. Tyler Rex has, Gabe has, and during that period of time has transitioned. Now, as I mentioned, Tyler Rex was not his real name. Gabe's, it was a stage name. His name was Gabe, so now her name is Gabby, if I'm using all the proper tenses. And everybody wants to know what the fuck I have to think about it. Do you know what I have to think about it, Brian?
I'm not exactly sure, but I'm hopeful.
I don't care. It's none of my business. I've never met this person. Now, if somebody wants to come up with some footage of Tyler Rex working with the Invisible Man, or an invisible hand grenade, or whatever, some of this phony bullshit wrestling, then we can have a more colorful conversation about Tyler Rex and or Gabe and or Gabby, because the heat would carry over. Still the same human being, regardless of gender. But until somebody can tell me what offense that this person has perpetrated against professional wrestling that I should be upset at them, I don't care, because it's none of my business. I will admit, a lot more trouble than I would go through to do anything. It seems like that is a procedure that would require a lot of steps, be both time-consuming, expensive, and potentially painful. I mean, unlike, Marco Stunt could get a sex change operation at the Piercing Pagoda over at the mall on Tuesday afternoon and still have room to get an Orange Julius on the way out. But for
What?
wouldn't be that complicated a procedure. Wouldn't be that time consuming. Possibly stop by Sunglass Hut. I understand he has to wear his sunglasses at night. But anyway, I would not go to that much trouble, as the former Tyler Rex has done. I have a problem with medical personnel. My interaction with any type of medical personnel basically is limited to routine maintenance once a year and anything that's going to prevent me from massive pain or prolong my life. Otherwise, fuck it. Matter of fact, people have asked me before, would you get a facelift or get a hair plugs or your chin tucked or lipo sucked or whatever? Fuck no. What I look like is going to be what I look like. I'm not offended by it. And if I'm not offended by it, fuck what you think. For somebody's going to be fucking altering any part of my person on a surgical basis for cosmetic reasons. However, as I mentioned, I don't care. It's none of my business. Gabby can do what she wants to do. Gabe can do what he wants to do, unless there's footage that surfaces of him. She has not had any wrestling matches at this point, of him wrestling the Invisible Man. Again, I say that's a lot of fucking trouble to go. And also, come to find out, he was married and has a child, which is sort of like, to me, taking a fucking fork and eating a whole entire birthday cake, and once you get finished figuring out you don't like birthday cake, went to a lot of fucking trouble there. He seems like you could have figured it out after the first couple of bites, but none of my business. As long as they're not insulting professional wrestling, it is not up to me to determine the poor, sometimes you want your Kate and Edith too. You know that, Brian? You want it both ways. You remember that song, don't you?
I remember you quoting it on the show, yes.
You can't have your Kate and Edith too. What was it? It was the Statler brothers. We went out on a double date, me and Edith, you and Kate. Got past front gate, and you were making eyes at Edith, and I was making time with Kate. Can't have your Kate and Edith too. You rascal, you yodeladdy hoo. Well, Tyler Rex has his Kate and Edith too. That's amazing. Maybe Marco Stunt is next in line. That would be interesting. Are we back?
We're back.
I got some Corny awards.
Oh, boy.
More from jacked up Jeremy Bagley. Just 3 of them. The J. Howard Marshall Memorial Trophy for wrestler whose life was ruined by a blonde with big tits. MJF for tag teaming with Chris Jericho.
That's pretty funny.
The Cersei Lannister Award for admiring your own brother's junk. A tie between Matt and Nick Jackson for their book cover.
Very good.
And lastly, the Bristol Stool Scale presents the Type 1 Award for the little shit who's hard to get rid of to Marco Stunt.
Jeremy's doing a great job with these, I have to say.
Jeremy is doing a wonderful job. You know what? The most times that Jeremy does a wonderful job is when he's recently been manscaped. I've noticed that. When Jeremy Bagley's balls are as slick as they can possibly be, folks, when his taint is trimmed tightly, when his crotchal area is not crotchety, when he smells like purdy flowers instead of a man eating Fremunda cheese in the septic tank of a slaughterhouse, that's when he does his best work, and that's when you're going to do your best work too, folks, with the fine products from our friends at Manscaped. It's winter time, but you can still get mildew down there if you don't do your proper maintenance. And I'm telling you right now, if you need it, Manscaped has got it. The Lawnmower 3.0 trimmer, the best hygiene tool for modern man, with the LED lights so you can backlight those pubic hairs, make them look like giant oak trees as they fall until you're left with just one monolith monster. It also comes with the Weed Whacker ear and nose hair trimmer. I'm talking about, of course, the Manscaped Performance Package with all of this stuff involved. The Lawnmower 3.0, the Weed Whacker ear and nose hair trimmer. Did you know, Brian? Did you know that 79% of partners polled admitted that long ear and nose hair is a major turnoff? 79%. I would like immediately the phone numbers and addresses of the other 21% because they'll do anything. Folks, also, you got the Crop Preserver Ball Deodorant, the Crop Reviver Ball Toner, the Preserver's the anti-chafing ball deodorant that makes them smell nice, walking in a winter wonderland. The Crop Reviver is the spray-on toner. Everything that you need. They've even got disposable mats for your hair and your pubes. They've got foot deodorant. Of course, the new refined cologne smells so good it'll put you in a good mood. It'll make you enjoy your own company. Just go to Manscaped. Get the performance package or get all their products. It doesn't matter because if you go to manscaped.com, that's M-A-N-S, spell everything else, M-A-N-S-C-A-P-E-D. Manscaped.com and use the code JCE. You will get 20% off anything and everything they got on sale and free shipping. Folks, from your tip of your toes to the top of your head to the fucking pee-pee hole on your pole, they will fix it all. Manscaped.
I have some Corny Award suggestions I could read.
Well, please go right ahead.
These were sent to cornydrivethrue@gmail.com from Hank the Wild. He sent a lot, so I'll read some of these. The George Goulas Award for Excellence in Nepotism. The winner, Brandy Rhodes. The Kevin Nash Award for being the coolest middle-aged kid in high school. The winner, Chris Jericho. The Hulk Hogan Award for giving your friends jobs regardless of skill. The winner, the Young Bucks. The Jushin Liger Award for facial expressions. The winner, Johnny Gargano.
Okay, that's a good one.
The Matt Hardy Award for Excellence in Pyromania. The entire WWE creative team wins that. The Ultimate Warrior Award for Logic and Legality. The winner, Ryback. Try to scan down. There's a few here. I won't read that one.
Uh-oh.
I'm not going to read that one.
Are they offensive or just bad?
The South Louisiana Award for creating a safe space for wrestlers. The winner, the AEW backstage area. What's that? What am I missing there?
I don't get that either.
The Ico Pro Award for Best Cross Promotion. The winner, AEW Heels. And it goes on and on and on. And we've received a ton. We've received a ton of these. But there were some good ones there. Oh, you don't have to hit every button.
Yeah, we've received a few good ones. Well, you got anywhere else to go?
This is your show. You were about to throw it at me, weren't you?
I got something. All right, I got something. The Yokozuna Documentary. What a great job. People have asked about that, and I got a chance to see that this week, and what a great job they did on that. I really enjoyed it. That's when they're doing wrestling history, they have to rewrite it because Vince is paying for all this, and Vince wants it told the way he wants it told rather than the way it happened. That is not a bad reflection on the technical people at the studio, the editors and the producers and the video people and the technicians that put these things together and shoot them. They're first class. They look like network TV quality productions whenever they do something like this. You know, it's just, I guess it's like a talented person working at Fox News where, you know, you can do a real good job, but you just can't tell the truth, to work for Vince and have him revising history. But in this case, because they didn't need to revise any of Yoko's history, they could just tell the story. It's not like his particular story contradicted anything that they've told before and that it didn't really happen that way. So I enjoyed it more than a lot of their broader historical pieces because you didn't pick out errors and you know, problems and or phony interpretations of things. What did you think?
I thought it was good. Obviously, with everything WWE does, there's a historically inaccurate slant at times.
Well, I just covered that. What
It's
was
baked in the
historically
cake.
inaccurate about this?
It's baked in the cake with everything they do.
What was inaccurate here?
Well, Bruce Pritchard's a little full of shit in general.
Well, I mean, they just have him sit down and say things that will expand the story. But now by the way, that is not a put on. That kind of condescending, I know more than you do, fucking tone he uses that really also.
He was the worst part of the documentary because he was the only person they used to speak for The Office.
But that's because he's there. Yeah. But at least he didn't have to lie. There was no untruths. There's a few clarifications we can go into here in a minute. But I enjoyed it. I didn't think they had to play with history too much for this. I loved the family stuff, especially with Fatu, Rikishi, and Lloyd Anuai, that was and several. I've known and met and worked with several of the families, so they were, and the family pictures and just the reflection there, that was kind of enjoyable. Do you have any problem with that?
I thought the family was the best part, and I thought it really painted a great picture of who he was and how he ended up with Afa and Sika. They're great. I mean, the family was what made the documentary great, I thought.
You know, it just illustrates that the Samoan family, and I mean, it's a big family, but they've always been so athletically gifted for the wrestling business. And I mean, as the generations have gone, because I think everybody will admit that Afa and Sika were fearsome and were badass, but they weren't flying around maybe as athletically as some of their offspring or the next generations or whatever, but they've always been athletic in the wrestling way. And I mean, we've said a million times, looking at Jacob Fatu right now, he's amazing. But they've always been able to move, and they've always been able to move despite their size, because they're all predisposed to get larger as they get older. You can see that too. I'm not breaking new ground here. But with Yoko, that was the sad thing. It was almost like a drug problem with him. It was maybe more dangerous. He would have lived longer if he'd had a drug problem, and lived to be older than that. And they were even, the family crying about it, say he couldn't control it. And the thing with Duke, I've told this story before, but poor Yoko, they had him try to do the program first, and obviously it didn't work because he didn't do it. But then when they actually sent him to Duke, and Bruce touched on this, he said he got bigger, which was no lie. When he first went to Duke and was staying there, since I was in talent relations, they had me call him once a week to see how his progress was, to report back to Vince. So I got the number. So, okay. And I called him the first week. Yoko, hey, brother, how are you doing? What's going on? What's the status? Oh, brother, I feel so good. And he said, they're getting a lot of fluid off of me, because people that size, what I'm about to say is not ridiculous. If a human male weighs, or a human being, I guess, of any kind, weighs upwards of 600 pounds, you can hospitalize them, catheterize them, put them on a heavy duty diuretic, and you can drain 80 or 100 pounds off of them in the course of a week or so. This is not, you know that, right? You can vouch for this, or do you know that?
No, I've heard that before.
Okay. So he said, yeah, brother, he said, a lot of fluid, I've lost 100 pounds. Okay, great. Then I called the next week, and it's the same time. Hey, brother, it's great. Yeah, boom, 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 boom. I'm down 75 pounds. I'm like, what? And Yoko's such a nice guy. I'm not going to be the one. I'm calling to see how he's doing, because they said that Vince wanted to know, but I'm not going to browbeat this guy, right? Okay, so I reported back. He says he's down 75 pounds. Thought it was 100 last week. I think that's what he said. Well, there's fluctuation because of the fluid, right? Next week, he was down 50 pounds. And it was true, but by the time that he left the Duke Weight Loss Clinic, he was heavier than when he went in, because he had found somebody that to fucking pay to bring him buckets of chicken and shit. So that was, but at the same time, he had such a great personality. It was hard to get mad at him, right? And some people had asked me about those, especially when he got heavier. it was dangerous to himself, but as they mentioned on the show, it was dangerous to other people too. But now the bonsai splash, when he turned babyface on me, and we turned, we didn't turn heel, we already were, but he turned babyface against me and Owen and Bulldog, whatever. One time they called for him to give me the bonsai, and I obviously was at ringside with the job guys when he would do the squash matches, and I'd seen him with the top guys, and I went up before I said, just, Yoko, remember, brother, I've always loved you. He said, don't worry, brother, I take care of you. And I swear to God, this was when he was at 700. I'm laying there. He's drugged me over under the corner, and I'm laying there, and he gets up on the second rope. And they use real ropes. We've mentioned many times in the WWF rings, which I hated. So they were so springy and hard to get your balance on, and they're bowing down, and I'm looking up, and he's so big around. And he goes up, and he bonsai, and he comes down. I have been hit harder with pillows. And that's what it felt. It felt like soft pillows landing on my chest. There was no impact whatsoever. If he wanted to take care, and it still looked great, saw the tape back. If he wanted to take care of you, he would. But when he was in the ring with the job guys, when he was first getting over in that first run and he was going to be the champion, he was flattening those guys because it was going to look good, because it was his money and his family's money. And he apologized afterwards on a few occasions. But that was what was expected. But if he took care of you, he was amazing. And it wasn't until he just got so fucking big that he was doing those matches with The Undertaker in 93. He was 500 pounds and taking those big flat back bumps and flying through the ropes and doing all that shit. I had an argument on Twitter with somebody who said, well, because I'd mentioned somebody sent out a tape of D'Lo Brown when he was working with Shane Hurricane Helms, when D'Lo was like 240 in the early 2000s, and he'd bumping like a cruiserweight. And I said, well, this kid showed up at his first Smoky Mountain TV taping. He was a 340-pound kid that got the basics, but after a lot of hard work, look what he was able to accomplish. And some wise ass, so you mean to tell me he weighs 340 pounds? Nobody'd believe that. I said, no, go back and read the fucking tweet, moron. He did weigh, well, I don't know, they exaggerate all the size and red. Well, Yokozuna would have had to have been 600 pounds or whatever. Guess what, Buttercup? Because I was in on the official weigh-ins also. Yoko was in the high fours in early 93 when he started in the WWF. For most of the run as champion, he was around 500, but he started getting bigger. By the time that he came back in 95, after he'd tried that program where he tried to lose weight at home, he was already well into the sixes. And the reason why that he could not, finally, why they let him go, you remember Survivor Series 96, Rocky's debut, Rocky Maivia, on pay-per-view was the same as Yoko's last pay-per-view. It was at Madison Square Garden. He was in an 8-man tag Survivor Series match, did 2 or 3 moves at best, left the ring, walked down the short aisle at Madison Square Garden, because then they used the short side, right? You know what I'm talking about. You've been there. But you didn't walk out the long entranceway back in those days in the garden. It was like a 50-foot aisleway. You came out from the side and went back same way. And he had to sit down at Gorilla to fucking catch his breath from that. And at that point, because New York State's the most strictest commission in the world, or in the country at least, they demanded that he pass a New York State Athletic Commission physical, which he could not. And his weight had topped out right at over 800, whether it was 802, 803, 804. It wasn't 810. I remember that. But it was an 80 something. And he couldn't pass physical, and they wouldn't license him. And if he couldn't get licensed in New York, then they wouldn't license him in any state that had a commission, so he was effectively unusable in 20-something states at that point, and they had to let him go. But until he got even that big, he still wasn't dangerous, and he still could control everything he was doing. And I've told a story also before. right before, a couple months before that, summertime, I think it was, we were in Indianapolis, and he had turned on my guys, right? And they got me in the ring, and he gave me a leg drop. And he'd done that you saw in the documentary, 1,000,000 times he's flying through the air with that big leg drop, looked like it killed you. Well, in this case, because I'm laying there and I'm pretty comfortable with Yoko at this point, and all I did was turn my head to the left because he was coming from my right side and wait for the leg drop. Boom, when it landed, my neck cracked in very quick succession about 4 or 5 different times. Crack, 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 crack. Because it turned it all the way around. And I was like, God damn. And in the locker room afterwards, he said, brother, I'm sorry. I got to step off. Yeah, he got to step off because he was so big. I hate to say this, and I've loved the guy. His legs, his thighs were bumping into each other when he would try to walk now across the ring. And it messed up his balance. And he sat on my fucking head. To this day, that was in 1996. To this day, I can turn my head to the left twice as far as I can turn it to the right, which sometimes hampers me when I'm trying to back up driving. But he was amazing. And I mean, you could see that footage, especially when he was younger, when he was training, when he was on. To move like that at 500 and 600 pounds meant that he was one of the, not for weightlifting strength, but just for pushing and pulling strength, one of the strongest men in the world. And also, probably, if he had been able to get it under control and drop weight, can you imagine the cardio system that he would have had?
What would have happened if, when he went to the Duke weight loss program, it had all worked out, but maybe overly worked out? If he had called you, or you had called him up and he said, I'm down 350 pounds. I mean, how could you be Yokozuna at that point? I mean, what would have happened if it had really worked out and he had dropped just a ton of weight?
It would have taken quite a while to drop 350 pounds. And I hesitate to say that would have happened in less than 2 or 3 years, unless you do a weight loss surgery, which it would have ended his wrestling career probably, because how can you take bumps with, whatever. But anyway, nevertheless, that's one thing I've never heard of anybody in the wrestling business while they're wrestling is the stomach reduction surgery. But he started in the business. He wasn't 400 pounds. Coquina Maximus. Think about that. I mean, there would probably, if Yokozuna at 700 pounds had lost 350 pounds, there would have had to have been some extensive, let's say, cosmetic surgery take place, and maybe a change in the wrestling outfit to cover up some things. But you've still got a 350-pound man what could he have done at 350 pounds if he could move like that at 700? Would he have been doing the Jacob Fatu springboard moonsault? I mean, remember till Rikishi got to be the high threes or whatever. Remember the Samoan SWAT team, him and Samu, that was on the show also. They did flying headbutts off the top rope, flying splashes from the top to the floor at 300-something pounds. You would have had to change the Yokozuna gimmick, but you would have had a 30-year-old, 350-pound guy that, was still an amazing athlete. I think something could have been done. It would have been better than him dying. But I never got any of the same thought from him or from anybody that in the family that would talk about it, that it was like Andre didn't want to have the surgery probably also because it was newer and, less, what's the word I'm searching for? It would make you nervous back then. It was a newer thing back then, but also he thought, will I lose what makes me special? Blah, blah, blah. With Yoko, it was he just had an addiction. He couldn't I watched him with literally buckets of chicken. We've told the story that at promos, this was after lunch in catering and before dinner afterwards, he'd go through a family bucket of chicken that he'd get Brawler or Bruno or somebody, downtown Bruno, not San Martino, to bring him while we're sitting there doing pre-tapes in the afternoon. So, I think it was uncontrollable. There had to be something going on. And they even said Savio brought up he had the sleep apnea bad. He would be sitting there and start nodding off. When in a space of time between 1990 and 1996, somebody gains 400 pounds. There's something else going on.
What about that story Savio told where Yokozuna stood up for him when guys were ripping him in the locker room? Do you remember that?
Not specifically, because I probably just wasn't there, but I believe it. Because Savio was, Savio was kind of like an honorary, member of the Island Boys at that point, and Savio was with the group of cooler guys. Yoko was with Taker, the Godwins, Mark Canterbury, and old Phineas Godwin. Fucking goddamn, I forgot what Phineas's real name is now, but they were the anti-clique. They were the cool guys clique, so they were all a part of their group, and Yoko would do that, and he really did. When one member of the family had a good paying job, all of them prospered because they were all even though it was such a huge family. The stories of Yoko, hey, here's some money to the young kids or whatever, doing this for me or doing for that for me or whatever, or anything you need, brother. It was not limited to him. They would all do that. They're a very close family, even though there's so many of them and they're spread out all over the place. But, that's it. Just nobody could get him to take better care of himself. And that I remember we were on the road when the toilet story happened. And I had to think, that's so fucking embarrassing. And that was part of Fuji's deal, because Fuji, and there's some Japanese heritage to that. He had to do a lot of things for Yoko that you wouldn't normally do if you were just a wrestler's manager, because of Yoko's size and, Fuji having to take up some of the slack.
What did you think of the way you were used in the documentary and the way you were addressed in the documentary?
I made a cameo. I guess they couldn't cut me out of the fucking Regis and Kathy Lee stuff. But I mean, I didn't care that there wasn't more of me, because it wasn't really about me. It was about Yoko. I thought they could have done a better job explaining why Mr. Fuji was his manager, but I was his spokesperson. But that might confuse people that didn't understand why I popped up and what was going on there. But that's minor in the course of the overall storytelling.
So you like the documentary overall?
There's no goddamn, they don't have to pay royalties, so it's not like they tried to fucking get past it on that. The World's Greatest Managers DVD with me and Paul Bearer and Bobby Heenan and Sherry Martel and Heyman and all those people on the cover, they tried not to pay me royalties. Because if you go back, almost every single bit of footage used of me in that whole thing is from WCW that they didn't have to pay royalties on. But at the same time, me and Heenan had more time on the DVD than any of the other managers. So I called him. What the fuck? I haven't got anything on my royalty checks for this. Oh, he tried to give me some who shot John. I said, look, I'm just asking a question, and you can call me back when you've got an answer, or you can try to fucking jack me around, because I don't give a fuck to sue anybody named McMahon, and I'll cause all kinds of fucking, this was 10 years ago or more. I'll cause all kinds of shit. I don't give a fuck.
Who are you saying this to?
What was his name? Frank Serpe. He used to be the chief financial officer. I think it was whoever the CFO was at the time, whose fucking stamp was on the goddamn checks. So I want to know why I didn't get this. So he called me back. At first he had said, well, I said, I'm the longest segment. I said, my match with Paul Lee from the Bash is on here as a bonus, and I'm on the cover, and I haven't got a royalty. Oh, well, we don't have to pay. We have your ownership of your likeness for the cover photos. I said, I know all of this. I worked in the office that you work in. I want to know why I didn't get royalties for being on this DVD. Well, we don't pay royalties. That's when I found out about the WCW stuff. For WCW footage, I said I was fucking the manager of your heavyweight and tag team champions. I'd like to know why I'm not getting royalties. And I said, if you can either calmly register my question and find out and get back with me, or we can be adversarial from the start, and I'll cuss you up one side and down the other, and then I'll just sue Vince McMahon and tell him that you're the reason why I did it, because you were an asshole to me. As it asked Vince, go call Vince right now in his office and ask, will Jim Cornette cause trouble if you piss him off? See what his answer is. So they called me back and said, oh, we made a mistake. What happened, if you go back and watch this DVD, every single bit of that footage is me from something in Crockett or TBS, except there is like a 10-second clip that's in slow motion, like a transition clip of me walking to the ring with Yokozuna. And because that was in there and that was WWF footage, they had to pay me the fucking royalties. Fucking assholes. But anyway, you know, if you have people giving you, whether it be a headache or a pain in the ass or a pain anywhere, there's one surefire way to fucking give yourself some relief. And folks, that's with the products from the folks at Omax, including CryoFreeze. If you're sitting at home in this cold weather, it's cold, it'll make your knees freeze and your liver quiver and your spleen turn green. And if you're suffering from aches and pains, whether it be arthritis, backaches, muscle soreness, joint pain. Usually if you have a joint, you don't have that much pain. But if you got pain in your joints, if you want to try a drug-free solution, you need to try the product that we've been talking about. Omax CryoFreeze CBD Pain Relief Roll-On. It's an all-natural topical pain reliever that ices out the pain with a 1-2 punch of super cold menthol and hemp CBD. Rub it. Roll it even, because it's a roll-on. It's got a ball at the end. Have you ever had a ball rolled on you? Roll a ball of CryoFreeze onto your back, neck, hands, or any painful area. I would not take it internally or shove it up your keister. But otherwise than that, roll it on to help block the pain, reduce inflammation, improve muscle and joint flexibility. We love this stuff. We take baths in it daily here at the castle, and you can too. It contains 10 powerful ingredients that provide a powerhouse dose of relief, which can last up to 8 hours. It's not greasy. It doesn't stink bad. It gives you a nice menthol, clears out your sinuses too. Anyway, if you go to Omax, that's OMAX Health.com, and enter the code JCE, omaxhealth.com, enter the code JCE, you'll get 20% off the Omax CryoFreeze and everything site-wide, whether it's that great sport cream they've got or the CBD daily supplement tablets or capsules or whatever the case they are. All the stuff that they've got will keep you from hurting and also numb the pain, reduce the inflammation. As Dusty Rhodes said one time, I can tell you about pain, baby. Well, I can tell you about pain too. And it's shits. It's the shits. Pain is the shits. Pain is bad. Omax is good. omaxhealth.com, the code JCE, 20% off. Everything site-wide. What more can I do for the cult of Cornette? So, Brian, what the heck are you doing this week on your various programs with all the technical issues you've had and the fact that you now have 39 inches of snow at your manor up there?
39 inches and rising.
That's what she said.
That's what she says every night. Check out the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network on Twitter at Superpodcasts or on Facebook, facebook.com/Arcadian Vanguard. A few notes. The latest episode of the Mid-Atlantic Championship Podcast with Mike Sempervive and Roman Gomez is out right now, reviewing Mid-Atlantic Wrestling Television from 1982. Hear the promos, hear the review, find out what's going on in the world of Roddy Piper, Rick Steamboat, Sergeant Slaughter, and so many more at midatlanticpod.com or wherever you find your favorite podcasts. The latest episode of John Arezzi's Pro Wrestling Spotlight Then and Now is up, where we review a classic episode of Pro Wrestling Spotlight from November 25th, 1990, including an interview on the air with you, Jim Cornette, who had just left the NWA. And actually, I want to play you a clip of this. Here is you from 1990, and again, you can hear this show, pwspod.com, or hear the entire unedited original broadcast at patreon.com/Arezzi. But Jim, here is you.
This is from Arezzi's cassette tapes. I'm going to sound like Alvin the Chipmunk, right?
Well, I think the bigger issue was your telephone connection because they were upgrading the telephone lines at the studio this week. But here is you talking about the state of wrestling in 1990 and the morale in WCW.
Well, let me say this. I don't know about short-term ratings or over the next few months or over the recent past few months, but I think, and it's my opinion, that time will bear out that people, wrestling fans or casual fans, are not going to continue supporting any promotion where they get substandard matches, even on TV for free, and especially when they're paying to see the matches. Time is going to show that you can't use lesser talent that you may get cheaper in replacement of established talent and people who know what they're doing and who the fans support and who the fans know and like. They're just not going to support that over a long period of time. The WWF has been very successful with what they do, and I can't quibble with anybody that makes a lot of money. Problem is, it's just not professional wrestling the way that I remember it, the way that you remember it, and the way that a lot of the wrestling fans today want to see it. It's more of an entertainment form, like they say, sports entertainment. Okay, they have their audience. The NWA has been followed traditionally by wrestling fans, and they want to see some wrestling. And to do that, you have to have some wrestlers, and I think they're going to realize with the loss of the Midnight Express as a team, with the loss of several other key people, I could mention Ricky Steamboat, Terry Funk, a lot of great wrestlers who have slipped away from the organization in the past year and a half. They're going to realize that gradually people are not going to follow the talents that they've substituted for these people just because they don't have the talent of the people who've gotten away.
Mm-hmm. Well, just some of the names that you did mention, I remember a year and a half ago when the NWO was getting red hot, when they had Steamboat and Flair matches, when Terry Funk came out of retirement to have his series of matches with Ric Flair. And, of course, the Midnight Express is always hot as ever, the emergence of the Steiner brothers. But then slowly but surely they started losing quality talent month after month. What is the morale of the wrestlers that are still affiliated with World Championship Wrestling at this point?
Well, I haven't been in the dressing room in a few weeks, so I can't really say, but I think that basically there's an opinion. Well, a lot of guys are not going to like the position they're in, regardless of what position they're in. But there's some feeling among some of the guys that, hey, this guy is the teetotal drizzling doo-doos, and he's making twice as much money as I am. What's going on around here? By the same token, you've got a lot of guys who are just happy to be anywhere because they normally, due to their talent level at this point, not to say they'll never get better, but due to their level at this point, they're lucky to have a job with a major promotion. I think a lot of that is maybe they're going for talent that they don't have to give long-term contracts to or don't have to pay a lot of money to. Well, you get what you pay for, in my opinion.
Yes.
And sooner or later, people are going to realize this. The old saying, you don't know what you got till it's gone. Well, maybe when there's no quality matches on a card, then somebody will wake up and realize what's happening.
Well, it is. What do you think, listening back to your words 30 years later?
30 years later, at least I'm consistent. And that was the point of time. And I think we even referred to it earlier when we told the Master Blaster story, where Herd wasn't going to do anything to make the company make money, so he was just telling people to just spend less. So they were running guys off and bringing in the bodybuilders. Ole was trying to recreate the Road Warriors, 7 or 8 years after the fact. But that's why you got those weird, strange gimmicks and those, bodybuilders that came and went and all the stuff that happened during that few-year period. They were just they thought anybody could be a wrestler and anybody could do this. And as a result, they lost the wrestling war to Vince McMahon. TBS, or WCW, owned by TBS, did not make a profit for the first 7.5 years that they owned the company because they started out like that and they never recovered. Herd was behind most all of it. And, now they're not hiring bodybuilders instead of wrestlers. They're hiring Cirque du Soleil what are Cirque du Soleil? They're not dancers. Are they acrobats? They're acrobatic dancers.
I think, yeah.
Okay, so now they're not hiring the bodybuilders. They're hiring the acrobatic dancers. Same fucking principle. And they can pay them less because they're just happy to be there.
We'll hear more from Jim Cornette right on the heels of him quitting WCW, the NWA, again, still under contract till May, but he didn't give a shit. Find out why.
Not a French fried titty fuck.
PWSpod.com, available wherever you find your favorite podcast. Just search for John Arezzi's Pro Wrestling Spotlight Then and Now. And of course, the 605 Superpodcast, The Mothership! 39 inches and rising. The latest episode in production. There were some delays this week due to the scheduling and production issues, but back on schedule. Stay tuned for more information and go through the archive today at 605pod.com. Available wherever you find your favorite podcasts. The Mothership.
Well, should we talk about some current wrestling and the current wrestling that we're not going to talk about?
I don't know. You going to dig your heels in? Try to convince yourself?
I'm digging I dug my heels in and convinced myself that we didn't watch NXT this week. And basically the reason was last week, because that was the worst program I've ever seen in my life. We started this because we thought there was going to be a Wednesday night war, and so we would evaluate the two programs. Well, now that at least the WWE side has given up on the war, there is no more war because they know there's no reason to hotshot their C program against a program that is not beating any of their A or B programs and is not gaining in viewership. So NXT has just become unfucking watchable because it's just bleh. And most of the people that we liked, Rhea Ripley, Damian Priest, have gone to be fucked up on the main roster. So we didn't watch NXT this week, and we'll probably continue that pattern next week. But we still do watch AEW because that is a grudge. That's a grudge. I'm not mad at NXT because they didn't come in with a bunch of big promises. But I'm mad at AEW because they came in with a bunch of big promises about sports-based wrestling, going to change the whole fucking face of wrestling. Well, they've changed the face of wrestling, much like one of those mob plastic surgeons used to rearrange the face of Public Enemy #1 so it couldn't be recognized by law enforcement. Not saying it necessarily looked real good, but it was different, all right. You know, I've had this saying, Brian, and I think this week bore it out. You don't get a rating on a good show because of that show. You get the rating for a particular program that you earned last week, is my thought. If you have a shitty show the previous week, then you're going to get a shitty rating the next week. And if you have a really good show, then you're going to have a really good rating. And this week, actually, because last week we said that was the worst NXT show that we'd seen, or at least I did. And I said that was actually the best AEW television program, top to bottom, that I had seen. And last week, they were only 20,000 people apart in the ratings. This week, we didn't watch NXT, but it was probably the shits. And AEW, I know, was the shits. And they were 200,000 apart. So each of those shows this week got the rating that the last week's shows earned them. Or elsewise, the whole thing just doesn't make any sense. Which one do you pick?
I think you get the rating the next week, typically, not always, not exclusively, but it's typically dependent upon the previous week's show and the buzz coming out of it.
Well, there you 200,000 people thought, fuck this, on NXT after last week. But then the problem is, when you get that good rating from the good show you did last week, you need to do another good show so they'll fucking come back. There's the problem. There's what they fell down on. The long-awaited tag team battle royal. They had to open the show with a battle royal. We talked earlier about it just being just a horribly, horribly, offensively put together program. So they open the show with a battle royal where Private Party's already in the ring, standing there like they're waiting for a bus. Dino Douche and Jungle Boy get their entrance so they can play the music that they paid a pretty penny for. They play a fucking pre-tape in a box from FTR, who were kicked out of the battle royal because they beat up the baby faces last week. Was this COVID related, or was this an actual booking thing they did on purpose to announce them in the Battle Royal, then take them out of the Battle Royal for a ridiculous reason, and then have them in a box talking about the ridiculous reason they were taken out of the Battle Royal?
I have not heard anything about it being COVID related. I think it's booking related, but also...
Do you think they just finally realized, wait a minute, if we don't want FTR to win this Battle Royal, we shouldn't put him in it? Could they have been that smart?
I don't know, but if they were suspended from this week's show and not in the Battle Royal for the attack on Luchasaurus' mask, what's going to happen now that they've kidnapped Marco Stunt?
Well, yeah.
What will the punishment be? Will they be sent to another company? What will happen?
Mask desecration is not nearly as bad on the fucking list of offenses as dwarf kidnapping and duct tape abusal. Fucking hell. Anyway, then here comes Sammy Guevara and Jake Hager so that they can play another cameo from Sammy Hagar. And by the way, I'm getting top quality audio and video equipment, so mine will look better than Sammy Hagar's. But yeah, they're actually getting cameos from Sammy Hagar now to place on the entrances of the wrestlers. I wonder, what is he on Cameo? How much does he charge? Do you have that?
Oh, I don't know. I didn't know it was Cameo. I just figured Jericho asked Eddie Trunk to call Sammy Hagar. And
I think they're obviously it's buying a cameo because it's shot with his phone while he's sitting out in his backyard. So I think they're just spending $150 to get a cameo to make their wrestlers look like stars. Then here comes MJF and Jericho immediately afterwards. Didn't they just have a big triple threat tag team match to determine who the tag team was in the inner circle so that they would all quit fighting and get along after that?
Yes, they in fact did.
Yeah, that was 2 weeks ago, right?
Yep.
Yeah, well, now they're fighting again. Two tag teams in a battle royal to determine who's going to get a title shot. Then here come the Fresh Princes of Derriere to rap to the ring. What's their name?
The Acclaim. Oh, Top Flight or the Acclaimed?
No, the Acclaimed. I forget all the. So one are Top Flight, one are Acclaimed, one's Urine Specimen. I can't remember. Then here come the Hardley Boys, Matt and Nick, or Captain Jack, Matt and Nick, the Hardley Boys. And they have brand new leather jackets with yellow fringe, and nothing makes a fucking middle schooler look more badass than a leather jacket with yellow fringe. And then they just run and dive off the fucking stage onto the floor on all the other teams around the ring, and everybody starts the battle royal and they start fighting. There's no introductions. You've seen entrances of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 teams. Another team was in the ring. I think there's some other people involved. The dork jobbers are out there. And they all just start fighting. Why would you jump off the stage onto a bunch of people standing on the floor when it in no way helps you win your wrestling match?
I can't explain.
Okay. So Private Party, the guy that's not Mark Quinn, Isaiah Cassidy, he came off the top rope to give a big dive on everybody, and everybody just walked off and let him splatter, but the camera missed it. They immediately cut away. He didn't see it. And the announcers had to talk about it. And then that was followed up with Jake Hager giving one of the dork jobbers a huge fucking bump out, and the camera completely missed that. So the guy risked his life for nothing. And then they went through every contrived elimination spot in every battle royal that's held now, where they make a big thing out of you have to hit the floor. So people go over the top and they jockey on the apron and they duck and dodge and do things to avoid being knocked to the floor. And then they take a little pissy ass bump of some description and whatever the fuck. That's the thing to do in battle royals now, instead of just getting thrown the fuck out. On a more positive note, guess who had the best battle royal performance of this battle royal or of the Royal Rumble, in my opinion?
Who?
Dino Douche. In this battle royal, he had a good battle royal performance. I will tell you why. It was better than anybody in the Rumble. It was better than anybody else in this because they all got together ahead of time and set up a bunch of shit for him to do to look dominant by beating up and or dumping a bunch of fucking people. It was better than Kane's because it had more life to it and went on longer and was done at a quicker pace. Everybody fed for it. Dino Douche, as we've noted before, is legitimately a dinosaur in that his body is 0.0001% of his brain rather, is 0.0001% of his entire body weight. He's a complete idiot, but he didn't fuck this up. He was there for everything. Everybody fed for it. It was impressive. Imagine that out of 2 battle royals, one guy kind of gets over. Then everybody sold for Balding Buck like he's a fucking giant. Actually, it's more like he'll fire him if they don't sell for him. Just ridiculous. Then here comes Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson. They cause a distraction and dump out one of the private party members. And then Balding Buck gets dumped because he's distracted or whatever the fuck. But then all 3 members of the inner circle that were left tried to eliminate Jungle Boy, but he foiled them and survived it. And then MJF just grabbed him and wheeled him around and threw him over the top rope. Like it was the easiest thing in the world. So I wasn't sure about that. And finally, apparently, I started to say Darius Rucker, but Darius Martin from Top Flight was left with Sammy and Jericho. But the deal on this battle royal is both members of the team have to get eliminated. So the last person in his team wins even if his partner has been eliminated. But Jericho and Sammy team up to try to eliminate Darius, but then they would, by nature of the rules, have to fight to eliminate the other, in which case the inner circle is still fighting. But Sammy was trying to dump Darius, and then Jericho tried to help him dump Darius, but dumped Sammy accidentally, quote unquote. And then Jericho dumps Martin. So Jericho and MJF win. Wardlow barely gets on camera. Sammy is pissed. Overall, even though a lot of it didn't make any sense and it was presented in a shitty way with no introductions and just the amateur booking of the thing, this was not as rotten as you would have thought it would have been and wasn't a bad battle royal and was better to me than the Royal Rumble. What'd you think?
It was all right. I feel like we've seen so many battle royals on AEW TV that I'm kind of immune to them. The first sign that most of
them aren't battle royals. It's just tag matches where guys don't care.
Yeah, and I don't even like the idea, the tag team that becomes the number 1 contender is the one that wins a battle royal. I don't know. I'm not big on that.
Well, maybe it should be a lottery. If you win the South Carolina lottery, you get to be on AEW television. Makes as much sense.
The first sign that it was freezing there for Beach Break or whatever this was the fact that Wardlow was wearing the biggest coat I've ever seen him wear. And it raises the question, why do Beach Break in February on a freezing cold night in Jacksonville?
In the cold part of Florida.
Why not do it during beach season? I don't know, just my 2 cents.
Why don't they just goddamn go back indoors if it's 40 fucking degrees, back to QT's gym and have a few fucking masked fans around ringside instead of running this giant empty open air arena with 40-degree weather? Anyway, they did a video on Jane Cargill. Did you see it? Her lifting weights and the whole, why didn't they do this for a few weeks before she just walked out unannounced on television and killed her career forevermore with the worst interview known to man? Why didn't they tell us she was someone first, show us videos like this to get us interested, and then if we'd have seen shit like this for 3 or 4 or 5 weeks, and then she comes out and has fumble mouth and can say "Suey" if the hogs had her, we might have forgiven her. I'm sure you liked it.
It was a good video to build her up, just out of nowhere here on the show. But again, it's booking in reverse order. We're exposed to her randomly showing up in the ring to challenge Cody to wrestle Shaq. And then we get 2 months of nothing And then here she is in the gym, and boy, can she lift weights.
And meanwhile, Shaq is no longer mad at Cody's wife for throwing water in his face. He's mad at Cody because he's a cupcake. And Shaq and his friend Jane are going to get even with Cody and pumpkin pie. Cupcakes and pumpkin pie. No wonder Shaq's out of shape. He's got sweets on the brain. Tony Schiavone was in the ring with Darby Allin and Sting. And it snowed again. And they come out to the ring again. And they're standing, and Tony starts speaking, and Darby Allin doesn't say a freaking word when Team Taz interrupts on the screen again, this time from the parking lot. They're not allowed in the building because last week they beat up the concession stand people that were set up out in the parking lot. The reason why they beat up the concession stand people out in the parking lot was because for 3 or 4 weeks in a row, every time Taz, the human suplex machine, and Powerhouse Hobbs, the 280-pound badass, and fucking Cage, the goddamn jacked up get my shit in bodybuilder, and Ricky Starks, the fucking in shape Latino superstar, and Taz's son, we haven't discovered what he does or why he's there, but 5 or 6 grown men are run out of the building without even having to be touched by a 150-pound skateboarder and a 61-year-old senior citizen with a baseball bat that he doesn't act like he's going to use every week. So now they're in the parking lot. Did I summarize that correctly?
Yes.
And they, in the parking lot, explain exactly what they're going to fucking do. A pretty good promo. The premise is preposterous, and they have to explain it while they're out there, and et cetera, et cetera. And basically, when they're done, Darby Allin never does say a goddamn word. Sting takes the microphone and says he'll be there next week to make sure that Darby Allin's match is one-on-one and Team Taz doesn't fucking try to interfere. Next week, Darby Allin is wrestling Jelly Nutella. Now, I know they're probably trying to use the fucking dates up on Jelly's contract so they can get the fuck rid of him because he's so embarrassing, right? Even they can't show him often. But Sting has to show up when Darby Allin's wrestling a job guy to make sure that it's one-on-one because Team Taz might run in and interfere when Team Taz has yet to do jack shit of damage to any of these people because all they do is run when they see Sting. And then, who was it, Taz or whoever said, we don't see an icon anymore. Well, Sting's big go-home line was, don't see an icon anymore? Take a closer look. Only he didn't deliver it that well. Darby never spoke. He's just the fucking mute stepchild, the delinquent that Sting has adopted from the boys' home run by Father Flanagan. Fucking hell. So, what'd you think of that?
Not much. It takes forever to get anywhere with this feud. Taz and his goons are always running away. They're in trouble for beating up the people in the parking lot, so they're still in the parking lot. I don't know.
They're still with the company.
If I had
Sting, beat up the fucking concession stand.
If I had Sting, I would try to find a way to get more value out of him. I don't know what that would be, but this isn't it for me. I don't know what they're doing with Darby right now. Team Taz has potential, and they're always treated like job guys on the run. Not crazy about all this. Not crazy about it. And it snows. Again, there's not even any fans there. I mean, it's like barely any people there. The Young Bucks, they're shooting off fake dollar bills with the Young Bucks. It's snowing for Sting. Save it for when there are fans there.
The fake dollar bills they shoot off for the Young Bucks come from their Monopoly game when they were kids that they would play. All right, next up, I was torn on this one. Dr. Britt Baker versus Thunder Rosa. I think Thunder Rosa is a tremendous performer and wrestler. has good matches. Dr. Britt Baker, I was a fan of until they botched her booking as a babyface, and I became a fan of hers as a heel because she was so entertainingly bitchy, and I liked Reba. And then they did the tooth and nail match, and I instituted the tooth and nail rule where it was so offensive that I would never watch anybody that had anything to do with the whole goddamn thing ever again. And I've kept to that rule, and I flipped a coin. I said, I'm running late, so I zipped it. What the fuck did I miss? Was Thunder Rosa any good?
You missed maybe, depending on what you think of that main event, maybe the best match on this show.
Well, then I just missed the best match on the show.
One of the best Britt Baker matches that we've ever seen, because she seemed a little wonky in the ring in the past. But I don't know if it's that she's getting better or that Thunder Rosa's that good.
Thunder Rosa's that good.
It was really good. It was a really, really good match.
Well, and I wish they hadn't misused their talent in the past so badly by putting them in such preposterous positions that nobody would ever want to see any of them again that were involved in that horse shit. Or elsewise we'd be saying good things about Britt Baker now.
Again, she's young. She's new in the business. She's happy to be there. She was one of the first people they signed. I can't be mad at her for not putting her foot down saying, I'm not doing this. It's stupid.
I was happy to be in the wrestling business when I first got in it, and I would have jumped off a fucking bridge and done any damage to my own body. But if they'd gone out there and said, have a match with the Invisible Man in front of people, or have a fake goddamn fight in your fucking dentist's office where you're obviously working with your opponent, or do any of this other stupid bullshit, I would have looked at them like they were crazy, because even I knew enough about wrestling to know that that was offensive at that point. Anyway. I swear to God, this coming up is true. What I'm about to tell you. This next match, Adam Page and Matt Hardy against Chaos Project, was set up because Matt Hardy wanted a match with, and by the way, Chaos Project is Luther and Serpentico, a.k.a. Uncle Fester and Dwarf Dongsucker's fucking stunt double. Matt Hardy wanted a match with Chaos Project because a couple weeks ago they ruined Negative One's birthday party, Brody Lee Jr. and the Mask. They ruined his birthday party. And that, once again, we're not even critiquing what they did or didn't do or what they've done to make Brody Lee's family feel better. But they are expecting us to say that Matt Hardy went to the owner of the company, Tony Khan, and asked for a match with these people because they ruined a kid's birthday party. And we're also expected to believe that Tony Khan said he can have it only if Adam Page teams up with Matt Hardy. And they had Matt there trying to talk Adam Page into teaming up with him against the two fucking outlaw pieces of shit that should have no business whatsoever on national television, much less against a WWF legend and one of your top baby faces in the company over a kid's birthday party. And Tony Schiavone was asked Adam Page, well, do you think that Matt Hardy has whatever crooked intentions or whatever? And Matt actually said, I have no intentions, Tony. I'm a good person. I have no intentions. I had no intention of watching this. But then I figured, you know what? I've got to, because this could be really entertainingly bad. Do they search circus sideshows to find adults as small as Serpentico? How do you find people like Serpentico and Dwarf Dongsucker that are of legal age to get in the ring and are still smaller than small children and not even as tough as like a Butch Cassidy, the world's meanest midget wrestler, or a Cowboy Lang or somebody? Could twist these people into fucking pretzels. Here you've got a 130-pound fake luchador and a 50-year-old crippled up outlaw guy from Canada that looks like Uncle Fester. And not even Jackie Coogan with hair, but the unflattering Uncle Fester. It's embarrassing to the business. It's an insult to every young, talented wrestler out there that's working their ass off and being serious and has some talent and potential, that these two guys are on a supposed real television show on national TV, and I assume making a decent amount of money to go out there and embarrass everybody. And there's guys all over the world that are working hard that could be given this opportunity and take it seriously. It's booking malfeasance. And even Serpentico, okay, you want to give some fucking emaciated 130-pound goof his dream. What's the excuse for Luther otherwise than nepotism? Oh, he's friends with Jericho. So, yes, he's 50-something years old, and he looks like a baked potato with arms and legs. And he's never been a name anywhere in wrestling. And he looks half crippled, and he couldn't work to begin with, but we're going to put him on national television because he's a star's friend. Fuck. It shouldn't be dignified by me speaking about it. So therefore, I won't. Page and Hardy won some kind of fucking way. What were your thoughts?
I can't believe they're still using Chaos Project on TV. It's embarrassing. They're not ready for prime time is a nice way to put it. Luther sucks.
That's insinuating they are going to get better. The one
No, they're never going to
get any bigger, and Luther ain't going to get any younger or better.
And they're not going to get better. Let me clarify. They're not going to get better. This is what Chaos Project is. Now, with Adam Page, the Dark Order spent weeks trying to get him to join. Is that now just over? He said no, and everyone just moved on?
Well, I guess. Well, now they're baby faces that like to be silly.
Right. So's he.
No, he likes to be drunk.
He's a silly drunk. And now he's with Matt Hardy with his new gimmick. I don't know.
Well, that's just for this week. I don't think it's going to last very long because they got even with the guys for. I don't even remember what the finish was. I don't even remember if I paid attention to what it was. They announced the big women's tournament for a shot at the women's title. 16-woman tournament, half of them Japanese women. Oh, joy. You got... Now, Twinkle Toes McFingerbang is spending Richie Rich's money on his personal fucking sexual fetishes. They're gonna do this in Japan, I guess. It's 8 Japanese women, right? They can't just during a pandemic they can't bring 8 Japanese women over here and have this tournament. They're half of it in Japan, half of it here. Is that what I'm understanding?
That was the way I took the package.
So they are going to show on TNT television in prime time matches between Japanese girls from Japan that nobody has ever fucking heard of before because Twinkle Toes has a Japanese schoolgirl fetish. What the fuck? Why don't we just have a fucking Tiddlywinks tournament with third graders from the fucking James Woods Elementary? That'll be a fucking ratings bonanza.
Well, again, let me just clarify. Not every Japanese women's wrestler is a schoolgirl.
There was one schoolgirl that seemed like she might have been sent to the principal's office a time or two. This Miko Ito, or what's her name?
Oh, I don't know. I thought you were talking about Riho, and Riho's actually in the American bracket. So
no, Riho is in the American bracket. That way you got 10 of Twinkle Toes' fetishes in here. They've infiltrated both sides.
You say fetish like he's not really into women. I mean, what do you mean?
Well, then what the fuck are we doing here talking about Japanese fucking tournament matches? And
he likes Japanese women's wrestling. I wouldn't say that's a fetish.
Then he ought to be a Japanese women's wrestler.
He kind of is.
Well, yeah, you got me there. All right, but who's the one putting out that, hello, motherfuckers, on Twitter, I am the queen of love and piss?
What?
You saw this on Twitter.
I did not. What?
One of the Japanese girls, is it Miko Ito or whatever, that is in this tournament. People were putting out screenshots of stuff where her Twitter account with her little blue check, hello, motherfuckers, with a picture of her in her schoolgirl outfit waving at everybody. And there's another picture of her that says she is the queen of love and piss. It's that strange Japanese, whatever the fuck they do over there. I don't know what the translation is or what the fuck's going on. Maybe somebody can... Look that up while you're sitting there doing nothing and I'm carrying the show like usual.
I'm looking this up right. Well, hold on.
Yeah, well, hold on. Well, there you go. Didn't take you long, did it?
Motherfuckers who don't live in Japan can also watch Wrestling Princess on Wrestling Universe.
No, don't just read it to yourself and giggle. What is her name, first of all?
Maki Ito.
Okay.
I believe.
And what is she saying on Twitter? This little 90-pound Japanese girl dressed as a schoolgirl, as many of them do, because it is a fetish over there.
Hello, motherfuckers. I don't see anything about piss.
One I saw said, I'm the queen of love and piss.
Let's see. The dream of going to high school. The dream of going to high school I wanted to go. The dream of becoming a manga artist. The dream of succeeding as an idol. All didn't come true. But my dream of going to AEW has come true. Next, I will fulfill my dream of becoming a star at AEW. Thank you for your support.
So everything else I tried to do didn't work out. But I'm going to AEW.
My dream of going to high school didn't work out, but going to AEW did. Now, a lot of these are in Japanese. I don't know if you want me to translate them. Was it a Japanese?
No, what I saw was in English. And why would you be saying, if you're this cute little Japanese wrestler announcing your participation in this tournament, hello, motherfuckers?
I think she's just learning English, because here's another one. Hi, I'm Maki Ito. I'm a dickhead. I'm socially awkward. I'm going to kick you in the nuts.
It fits in with AEW perfectly. Socially awkward people that like to kick each other in the nuts.
Well, here's something along the lines of what you were saying. Again, I've never heard of this woman's wrestler before. Words learned today, golden shower.
That was the name of the double team finish that Twinkle Toes and his fucking doll wrestling partner, Kota Ibushi, another piece of shit that can be boiled in oil and have his fat sold for soap for wrestling children and blow up dolls, that this fucking self-masturbating fucking basement audience thinks is the greatest wrestler in the world, Kota Ibushi. They actually had a finish called the Golden Shower, where they would fly from the top rope and land on the...
No.
Did I get... Yes!
It was called the Golden Shower?
It was apparently like the fucking puddles of piss that they are. They named their finish the gold... Because their team was called the Golden Lovers. And their finish was the Golden Shower. And they like to have matches in front of paying customers with inanimate sex dolls. But I'm the one that's fucked up for calling attention to it. I'm not making any of this shit up. Just like I wasn't making up old Miko there being the queen of love and piss or whatever. Anyway, we're going to have this big women's tournament to see who gets a chance at the women's champion, who is another Japanese fucking schoolgirl.
She's not a school. They're all not schoolgirls.
All right, she graduated. You happy now?
This one's not. Couldn't even get into high school. How can you call her a schoolgirl?
You got me there.
And by the way, I must admit, I did pop when they start running down the names. Like, it's nice to see Aja Kong, although it's been a while. But they're running down the names, and I'm like, I can't believe they're going to do this. They definitely are not going to air this on TV. It'll have to be on YouTube. But when I saw Emi Sakura's coming back, I said, oh boy, I can't wait for this.
Is she going to bring her Freddie Mercury outfit? Is she shaved off her mustache? She didn't have a mustache in the fucking picture they showed.
If she doesn't have the mustache, I will be disappointed.
Okay, and I'm going to say this and we'll move on. If there's any further proof needed that the owner of this company is a blithering idiot when it comes to the wrestling business, and he is being put upon in a very fucking malfeasance-ridden way by the idiots that he is believing and listening to, because now he's going to pay for 8 or 10 of these Japanese girls that nobody has ever heard of except some of the same people watching his program anyway. And we're going to have to watch this. It's fucking lunacy. Just because this goddamn his fucking effeminate fucking champion that ought to be in the women's fucking schoolgirl department fucking has some type of fetishistic fixation over Japanese women fucking having matches when nobody knows who the fuck they are or understand a goddamn word they say. That's captivating television. Speaking of which,
I will be happy if this girl. I will be happy if this girl shows up and does a promo and says, "I'm the queen of piss." That will make me happy.
Well, she's just learning English. The Inner Circle. MJF and Jericho want to celebrate. Sammy's not happy, and he walks out. Jericho goes after him. MJF has Wardlow kick the fucking cameraman out and tells all the group, it's time we had a talk. Well, of course, it's going where we said it was going to go, and JR says, well, how do you process that? Which they ought to just tape JR saying, how do you process that, and play it every time the amateur booking hour starts again. Then finally, you know we all love these, Brian. You can't wait to see the wrestling weddings. They're all just gold, Jerry, just gold. Can't wait to see the wrestling weddings. Normally, the wrestling weddings involve an actual star in the company. That's the best ones. But this, they're doing probably nothing has ever been consistently as bad as wrestling weddings. They always suck. They're always hokey and phony. In this, usually they're done with stars. In this case, that wasn't even the case. I can't call Pip Sabian and his lovely bride Penelope Pitstop underneath talent, because do they ever even really wrestle? They just come out and do stupid shit with goofball Miro. Miro! I want them to team up Miro and Rio so we can sing their introductions. But can you call Pip Sabian underneath talent when he's never even wrestling? He's just there to do this stupid comedy with video games?
I mean, he's definitely underneath.
Well, you got me again there. You're coming in pretty hot today, pretty good today with these comebacks there. We should tape earlier more often. The best part of this was Father James Mitchell, good old Daryl Van Horn presiding, because he don't give a fuck. And he kept it halfway clean. On Smoky Mountain TV one time, he started chanting and fucking conjuring Prince Karis up from the Egyptian tombs by speaking Kizarni about Wizeta Kizan Safizaka Mizi. With my Wizeta Kizanta. Nobody ever figured it out. Anyway, so Mitchell was the best part about it. Jerry Lynn walked Penelope out. Jerry Lynn looks younger than the fucking wrestlers on the roster still. I don't know why Penelope was wearing white. She ought to be wearing fucking magenta with purple stripes. I understand that she's had more dicks in her than a urinal at Madison Square Garden.
Hey.
But I'm not one to... No, that's just an old joke. I don't know anything about her personal life.
She looked pretty good in that dress. You can't take that away from her.
She's attractive. I wish she'd become a model so we could just look at pictures of her and not see her on a wrestling program. She's very attractive. Pip would be a wonderful model for children's clothing if we just didn't have to watch him on wrestling. Miro would be a fucking wonderful model for... What could he model?
Eastern European drug dealers.
There you go. Either that or fucking maintenance personnel's uniforms. He'd look good in one of those jumpsuits like Colt Cabana used to wear with his name on his fucking name tag like a guy that works at a gas station, which is probably where Miro's going to be now that he has to depend on his wrestling talent, has no help with anybody getting him over despite himself. Anyway, JR mentioned, there James Mitchell presiding for the hopefully short ceremony, which the ceremony was short, and I thought we were going to get lucky, but then it kept going from there. They did. Pip shared his vows, which was some alleged comedy that he'd memorized. Penelope did the same, but not as well. She was going for a dick joke, but he cut her off. It was short, I wrote down, but still seemed long. Mitchell had to say the word kayfabe twice. That's the only part I didn't like about what Mitchell was doing. Is no reason you could have done all the good shit without using insider terminology. Miro shot down the objections question, so we didn't get to hear that. And I know because they had him in some kind of fucking marriage deal with that fucking goofy Lana, right? On the WWE.
They're really married, him and that goofy Lana, as you put it.
Fuck, that's right. The one that she had, first she was Russian, then she wasn't Russian. Then she had an accent, she didn't have an accent. I've seen her a couple times. She was the fucking drizzling shits.
And then she was rushing into the arms of Bobby Lashley.
Yeah, whatever the fuck. But so they did a bunch of comedy wedding shit with her and him, and so he's the one. But now they're referring to goofy, stupid shit that was bad on the other fucking company's program. And they've got to remind people that the same people that did bad, goofy, stupid shit on the other program are now doing the same thing on their program. How is that productive in any way, shape, or form? Is it?
No. You know the answer. No, of course not.
If it was the only people that thought that shit was any good when they did it were the people that were in it. And that's because they don't even know what's good in wrestling. Because who the fuck these people have never even seen wrestling, and they're perpetrating it. And they're being told what to do by people they work for who know less than they do. Oh my God. As this was going on, I wrote in capital letters, "This is the TNT network." I could understand if it was some local fucking independent promotion on a local station or whatever. You know, you do what you, but this is supposed to be national cable and legitimate professional people here. Of course, Chuck the Buttlefuck is there. He's the butler. They won him. He brought the champagne. Miro rattled off some nonsense in his accent, and I never can understand what he's saying. Then he pointed at a box. There was a gift-wrapped box in there, so he went over and beat it up, and it was an empty box. And
well, you always say, whatever's in the box, whoever
comes out of a box gets over.
Gets over. What happens if there's no one in the box?
Nothing gets over. And here's proof. It was an empty box for an empty segment. It was so bad that when fucking Miro was trying to do the toast thing, the actual fans, not the ones at ringside, but the actual fans they've let in the upper deck, started singing to entertain themselves. He said, "What is love?" And they started, "What is love? Baby, don't hurt me." Then they're singing. And so he had to go with it because they were so bored and this was so bad that even the people who like everything, including the taste of their own shit, and support AEW was going into business for themselves. Somehow, Miro finishes his statement and tries to go over and do something and has been chained to the rope, has been leg shackled to the rope without him knowing it. Chuck the Buttlefuck apparently did it off camera. And so now with him leg ironed to the bottom rope, Chuck was able to nail Pip, who bumped into Penelope, who took a stagey fall into the fucking cake. And then they beat up Chuck, but Pockets came out of the cake and beat Pip up. Brian, has anything this stupid, this bad, this poorly done, this unprofessional, involving people who are so unknown in this business on an overall basis ever been done on Raw? Ever?
Oh, I don't want to just say no without researching that, because there's a chance.
But you gotta think.
But this is certainly an homage to the awfulness of Monday Night Raw.
People constantly have criticized. This was supposed to be the sports-based presentation for the Dog and Pony Show that they've turned pro wrestling into. But yet, not only was this as poorly done, as poorly executed, as silly and stupid and fake as anything been done on Raw, but it wasn't even done by stars. It wasn't even done by people who looked like stars. It wasn't even done by people who you could say, well, say what you want about what they're doing now, but gosh, they were great when so-and-so, because these people involved in this have barely been heard of by anyone but this minute niche audience that has been has hijacked this fucking billionaire's fucking company. Anyway, not even stars in their own company. So that's what they did there. Closing thoughts on the wedding. When's the divorce?
It was a terrible segment. I don't even know if I should say it's embarrassing because there's so much other embarrassing stuff. It's just bad. It's just not good. Miro's been a waste there. Kip Sabian, no one cares about at all. Now, let's just actually look at this as a program we're supposed to care about. Kip Sabian announces he's going to marry Penelope. He's going to reveal his best man. They had Brian Pillman Jr. and some goofball come out, think they were going to be the best man. But the big reveal was it was Miro, on the heels of being misused by the WWE for years. He comes in. He's the best man. He's going to arrange the bachelor party. They do a video with him and Billy Mitchell from the King of Kong. And then that goes nowhere. We never see Billy Mitchell again. I don't know what happened with the bachelor party. Was there one? You thought there would be some kind of video showing some goofy AEW bachelor party.
No, because they're not important enough to get flown out to Las Vegas so they can jack off.
You could have done it anywhere. You could have done it anywhere in Florida, but they didn't even do that.
Don't forget about the broken video game.
The broken video game, of course, there's that. Then they do the wedding. I like James Mitchell. I think he's a talented guy. I thought he was a little too hokey here and a little too cute for his own good here. We haven't seen Vicky Guerrero in weeks. For some reason, she's walking Kip out to his wedding.
She works there, but yet why? And what for what reason?
So again, they just do this wedding with these undercard characters that nobody cares about. They just made Chuck Taylor, the guy's butler, 2 weeks ago? 3 weeks ago? It just happened.
It was two.
2 weeks ago.
He's been a butler once before, I think.
By the way, that came out of nowhere. It was just all of a sudden, I'm going to beat you and you're going to be my butler.
His partner got hurt legitimately, so what else are you going to do with a guy where his partner gets hurt, but put him in a match where if he loses, he has to be the heel's butler?
So the stupid stipulation comes out of nowhere. And of course he loses. It's the old made-for-a-day thing. He's the butler. They give it 2 weeks.
And he's fighting back already.
2 weeks, and all of a sudden he's sabotaging this wedding. I would like to know, how did they get that fake cake in the ring with Orange Cassidy in it? With the ropes there and everything? I would like to know how they did that.
I guarantee you that they spent time on what I'm sure was an already busy day and a long production day to fucking go out there and take the ropes down, say, get the fucking cake in and put the ropes back up, just to do that stupid shit with that stupid, offensive human being.
I don't know. But the segment was bad. It was embarrassing. When I always say it's their version of WWE Raw, this is an example. When I say that it's a bad show, here's an example. We've had another battle royal. We had another wrestling wedding. Remember when that was like a thing, like out of nowhere, like, oh my God, Plowboy Frazier, Butcher Vachon.
And every time you saw one, every smart fan fucking hated it and shit all over it because it was getting in the way of the fucking wrestling and making everybody look stupid and fake.
Penelope went into the cake, which is great because we haven't seen that in 2 weeks since the kid's birthday party where another guy went into cake. This whole segment was atrocious. This promotion is horribly booked. And this is in the middle of all this other stuff. Just horrible booking. Horrible booking. Defend that, Dave.
Well, coming up next, speaking of horrible booking, remember I praised, you weren't a big fan, but I thought it was much better than the normal offering from this program. Last week, Eddie Kingston had a single match with Lance Archer. And it was one-on-one, and they fucking laid the shit in, and Kingston sold, and fucking Archer looked like a beast, and the shit looked like a fight, etc. So they come back this week with a lumberjack match between the two of them, because last week, fucking Kingston fucked Archer. He fucking hit him with a spinning back fist with the knucks on. So boom, he fucked him with a foreign object. So immediately the following week, they come back with a lumberjack match. Okay, for one thing, yes, the foreign object was handed in from outside the ring last week, but a lumberjack match makes no sense in this environment because you have a lumberjack match when either the heel runs out, takes a walk, gets counted out to escape his ass kicking, or you constantly have people jumping into the ring to interfere. So this way, you have a lumberjack match, you keep the people in the ring, and nobody except the lumberjacks can get into the ring because they're there to keep them out. And then obviously you're supposed to have an equal number of heel and babyface lumberjacks so that nobody is at a major disadvantage because all their friends are around the ring and none of the other guys' friends. Well, of course, here nobody is a heel or a babyface, so you can't tell who's supposed to be on whose side. But also they add to the lumberjack match, Brian, those magic 2 words, no disqualification, which, as we've mentioned, is now a synonym for lazy booking. Why does a lumberjack match also have to be no disqualification?
Well, hey, hold on. You want to talk lazy booking? And first of all, going back to that previous segment, remember last week when we reviewed Royal Rumble, I said, I'm sick of handcuffs in wrestling. It's being done too much. Then Miro gets handcuffed to the bottom rope without even knowing it.
Without knowing
it. But didn't we just see a lumberjack match on AEW recently?
Well, maybe it was just one of those matches where everybody just stands on the outside on the floor and fights and doesn't use the ring. I can't keep track.
No, we've actually seen lumberjack matches. So again, we've had multiple battle royals in the last several months. We've had more than one lumberjack match. The stipulations like, you'll be my butler, or we're going to have a lumberjack match, just pop up with no rhyme or reason. Again, going to my argument of, this is a horribly written show. But continue.
I forgot to mention before I go into this, there was Shaq comments from inside the NBA on Cupcake Cody Rhodes. He mumbled. He basically said, I'm going to do it about 15 times. And he playfully knocked the plexiglass over in between him and the other announcers with his move, the Black Tornado, which is just like the Judas, except it's Shaq doing it. He's totally not taking this even remotely seriously, and all of his announcer friends and everybody that was watching can tell. This is just a fucking PR appearance, and it's just a hoot for everybody involved. There's no seriousness whatsoever. So they'll love it. The people involved in it, they will think it was wonderful. The fans will all shit on it and fucking take their dicks out and piss on it. Anyway, so back to Archer and Kingston. Last week they had a good match one-on-one. Now they've got everybody in the company around the ring and no DQ and all these people, and it's a fucking mess. And they don't create the magic 2 weeks in a row. At one point, the bunny jumps in the ring on Lance Archer's back in front of the referee, but it's no DQ. And then Kingston backfists him while she's on his fucking back. Jake, out of nowhere, the camera missed the setup of this too, just comes from nowhere and decks Angelico and falls on top of him. Actually fell. He fucking either nailed him or was trying to hit him with a short clothesline, and when the guy took the bump, Jake stumbled over and fell on top of this fucking guy. Jim Ross's comment was, quote, "Is this an insane asylum?" No. Reason why is you have to get a fucking medical professional to treat you and admit you. And apparently no medical professionals have ever treated these people. Kingston at one point told all of his stooges at ringside to bring the fucking table in and grabbed the referee and pointed him at the other guys on the other side of the ring who were going, no, look the other way, while they're setting a table up 10 feet behind the referee's back. And by the way, as soon as the match started, all the heels had just jerked Archer out and kicked the shit out of him. But when Kingston hit the floor, he attacked the baby faces. But last week, Kingston worked as a babyface in the match and sold and made a comeback. And fucking Archer got heat on him until the finish when Kingston took a foreign object and knocked Archer out. He became the heel and Archer was the babyface. But now none of the baby faces are doing anything to help anybody here, whereas the heels are blatantly interfering willy-nilly. At one point, Lance Archer just dove on everybody because, of course, you should do a dive. How did running across the ring and diving over the top rope onto everybody out on the floor help him in his quest to win that match? It made no sense. They went to a break within first 2 minutes of this. The break was the best part of it. Then they came back and they did some of the things that I was just mentioning, get the table and blah, blah, blah. Everybody started doing spots behind the referee's back, and then they just roll out. And then finally, Lance Archer hit his fucking finish and beat Kingston to get his win back. So now they're just 50-50, and it's a bunch of fucking heels really mad at each other anyway. And my only overriding thought on this was whoever put this fucking match together as an agent and or whoever booked it to begin with should probably be fucking castrated with a goddamn rusty saw blade. That's what they deserve. What'd you think?
I mean, at this point in the show, I just didn't care anymore.
Okay.
I haven't cared about this feud. When all of a sudden it's a random lumberjack match for a feud I don't care about, I really didn't care. And I'm going to reiterate once again, a really poorly put together wrestling program, AEW Dynamite is, on a regular basis, despite some great matches and personalities that wrestling fans like. It's a badly put together show. If Herb Abrams had Jushin Liger versus Owen Hart on his show, it would be a great match. It would still be a shitty show.
Let's hear it for the Jews.
Thank you.
Then FTR did their promo with Tully about being banned from the Battle Royal. And Tully was trying to, once again, like Arn did last week, like Tully's done before, try to say something that makes sense out of a situation that makes no logical sense. But as they were getting to that and basically talking about how they've been perceived to be bad people, well, here's something a bad person would do or whatever, the camera widens out. And now I said they were buried and dead before when they started taking bumps for the dwarf and all the bad booking and everything. But now they just look so fake and so silly. They're just completely ineffectual. The camera widens up and we are expected to believe that they have kidnapped little dwarf Dongsucker. And he's handcuffed and duct taped to a chair and with duct tape over his fucking mouth. So they have kidnapped a midget mascot after the week after that they fucking clipped the dinosaur horns off Dino Douche's mask. And we're expected not only to believe that they've done these things, but that the other guys are going to be mad about it because this is such fucking heat. So now this is just as bad and hokey and silly and phony as anything in the WWF, but it's being done with, you can't even use the word talent. It's not like they kidnapped somebody that anybody has listen to me say that, like that would be believable. It's not like they kidnapped somebody that people like. They've kidnapped a fucking annoying little fucking genetic mutant, and they haven't really kidnapped him because nobody believes it. They've beaten him to death. They booked him rotten from the start. And they've made FTR and Tully Blanchard a complete non-entity that will not add one single fucking view or rating point or buy rate or anything to anything. Two of the best heel tag team in the world and the best performers up and down in the ring they've got on the roster. And it's been, 3 months or 4 months maybe, and they've made them completely irrelevant. And now they're kidnapping midgets. And then that was followed by a promo from Jelly Nutella. He's still around, as I mentioned before, but did you notice he was next to a big stack of orange highway cones? They actually took a camera out where he's still doing his community service. On that last fucking violation they sentenced him to when he was out behind the elementary school sniffing the bicycle seats again. They caught him. And he was supposed to do fucking 50 hours of road cleanup, and they went and shot his promo about his match next week from the side of the fucking interstate where he's doing his community service. And he's going to fight the 150-pound fucking mute skateboarder next week. Imagine that.
Well, first of all, to the FTR segment, Marco's stunt being kidnapped, this is why Goldberg has security during these empty arena shows. Because anything can happen backstage in a wrestling show.
Haven't they done this also? I mean, we've seen so many people kidnapped in the back and thrown in car trunks or taped to chairs or whatever.
Well, their car was stolen. No, Tully was kidnapped by Jelly Nutella. in AEW way back when they still had fans.
That's right.
Remember, all of a sudden, Tully was on the stage,
tied up and fucking gagged.
So this is the second kidnapping I can think of in AEW history.
And by the way, I'll guarantee you, Tully Blanchard. The reason why Tully Blanchard went along with that was because he found God and got a lot nicer. Because the Tully Blanchard that I knew previous to 1988, if he'd have said, yeah, you're going to come out and this midget's going to kidnap you and tied your hands and duct taped you, I'd have paid $1,000 to hear the fucking promo that came back at me from the real Tully Blanchard.
And then when it comes to Jelly Nutella's promo, I must admit, I've softened on him recently because I feel bad for the guy. There's no way. We see all the garbage they push in AEW, all the garbage that gets airtime in AEW. There's no way this guy thought things were going to turn out.
And they still won't put him on, except when they need a job.
Now, to be fair, the AEW fans themselves have rejected him, but there's no way this is the way he thought it would work out. So I went into this with an open mind, and I thought it was an all-right promo for him. But the end of it, and the end of every one of his promos, where he said, I'm going to be a bad boy. You're like 30 years old or something. Shut up.
He's older than that.
That's the worst catchphrase. I am the bad boy, so I'm going to be a bad boy. Well, maybe you'll get spanked. I don't know.
He's Curly Joe Dorita. I'm a bad boy. Anyway.
Hey, Joe Dorita wasn't Curly Joe Dorita, was he?
I thought he was.
Oh, no, excuse me. I was thinking of Joe Besser.
You're thinking of Joe Besser.
Excuse me.
Well, he was a bad boy, too.
In a very different way.
Joe Besser was a bad boy, not Curly Joe. Well, they were all bad boys.
Yes.
They were a lot badder than Joey because they were grown adult men. Anyway, all right, this thing's almost over, so let's hasten its fucking demise. The main event that apparently Uncle Dave thought the last 30 minutes, the last 30 minutes of the program was the midget kidnapping, the meth head from the trailer park cutting a promo about the one time every 3 months he gets to wrestle on television, and then this match. That was all the last 30 minutes. And apparently Uncle Dave thought that this was just, for whatever reason, good. I don't know. But it was Twinkle Toes and the Good Brothers, Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson, against Stone Cold Moxley, the balding plumber, and his partners, Pac and Felix. And this was the match that Moxley himself tried to explain and couldn't on his interview last week. Why is he teaming up with Pac and Felix, who are not related to him in any way? They have no interaction. They're heels. He's supposed to be a babyface. And Twinkle Toes is now back with the Bullet Club. And now they can kind of say Bullet Club because I guess they think that New Japan won't sue them all the way over here. Whatever the fuck. And
because they now have a deal with New Japan, clearly.
Well, okay. Well, there you go. New Japan. Well, like I said, they think New Japan won't sue them. But also, I'm getting to this in a minute. What a rib now. If you're tag team partners with Moxley, does that mean that you can't actually dress in the building either? That you have to get dressed out in your car in the parking lot and walk all the way in these long distances in this giant arena just because you're teamed up with Moxley? You don't get to dress where there's heat and what the fuck is that? And they just stood there and waited on him to come and he said, okay, let's go. And they walked from the parking lot down the breezeway into the arena. That's got way past fucking stale. I can understand why he would come through the arena and be the counter culture against the establishment guy when there were people in the arena and that way he's coming for out of the fans. But now it's just stupid. He's walking out of the parking lot into an empty arena. It takes for fucking ever. It's another thing I used to teach guys in OVW. When you're on national any kind of television, the clock is ticking. And the longer you take to get to the fucking meat of the matter, the less time you have to get yourself over. Anyway, I wrote at the start, because of this match, that there's almost no way that this not only won't be rotten, but also a clash of styles. Because there's a lot of people in here that, I mean, Felix can do what Felix can do, but you can't work with him if you're an American. Pac is an amazing athlete and a fucking badass looking guy with a great body and does some shit, but who knows whether he's a heel or a babyface, and he don't know how to work differently to tell you. He just does what he does. We know about Twinkle Toes. I like Gallows and Anderson, but apparently this match was one of the most heavily edited matches in all of fucking...
No, not this one. This one was live. It was the week before.
The week before, they were... Oh, that's right, because that was really bad. They were making a bunch of jack-off motions. Probably like, who the fuck are these jack-offs we're wrestling? Anyway, the balding plumber trying to be a badass and beating up Luke Gallows is a stretch, visually. Pac and Carl Anderson did some nice athletic spots. But this whole, again, the booking, one is a team of heels, one is a team of 2/3 heels and Moxley. And it was mostly guys doing shit back and forth to each other and everybody trying in vain to make Jon Moxley look like a big star. And then they tried to get heat on Moxley, but he would never stay down. He never stays down. It would frustrate. If he was in the ring with Dick Murdoch 30 years ago and Murdoch was trying to get some heat on him, I would love to see that, honestly, because Murdoch would just give him the 1-inch punch and knock him cold and put a hold on him till he came conscious. And it would be a better match than what Moxley was having. But nobody bothers to fucking ground a guy anymore when he's not selling and you can't get any heat to build a fucking match. They just do moves back and forth. Anyway, Felix made a comeback. Felix and Pac shit-canned Gallows and Anderson and had Twinkle Toes down in the middle of the ring. And both of them go to the top, and I think, okay, Felix and Pac are going to do some fucking double move off the top to fucking Twinkle Toes, right? Because he's right in the middle of the ring. Guess what they did? They both went to the top rope, climbed up, looking at fucking Twinkle Toes, and then did backflipping moonsaults off the top rope onto Anderson and Gallows on the floor. Why would you do that? You have just... The babyface has made his comeback. The babyface team is cooking. The two fucking heels are shit-canned on the floor. You've got one guy in the middle of the ring that you can hit and beat, and you go up to the top and backflip out on the floor on the two guys that you can't win the match against. What the fuck is going on here? This is all a performance of something that these people involved in it have been told is professional wrestling. Then Felix goes to the top rope, does a backflip off the top rope and lands on his feet in the ring, drops down and does an immediate backward roll, jumps up and gives a cutter to Twinkle Toes, who was standing there dumbfounded waiting for him to do that. This is the most ridiculous bunch of horse shit I have ever seen in my life. You couldn't sit anybody down that asked, why are you watching that stupid wrestling shit? And explain this to them in any way and get them interested in watching anything. They would just laugh at you. So, at one point, the heels, all triple teamed incessantly with no tags and no count, and referee Aubrey just standing there. And then the babyface team with Plummer and company did the same thing. Back to them, no logic, no heels, no faces, no timing, endless moves, 100 miles an hour, impossible to follow. And finally, they beat Felix some kind of way. Thank God it was over. But then, of course, immediately there's heat afterwards. The heels start getting them down again, and here comes Lance Archer to make the save. Why? Why would Lance Archer make this save? Because he's a heel too. Or he used to be. Till they decided maybe he wasn't earlier today. And then, of course, Moxley is up. After Archer has made the save, Moxley is up on his feet already, even though he's had this brutal match and then they've got heat on him. What did you think about the match before we get to the final big happening and reveal and everything? What did you think of this performance?
I thought it was all right, but I was watching it knowing that it would be nothing but spots. It will at some point just degenerate into spots. And it did.
Okay, and now something happened that all the AEW fans went just berserk insane for, that they were making statements and the people in the company making this is going to change the face of wrestling again. Remember when that was going to happen? Oh, the last time. Moxley is up in the ring and some small human being that apparently looked to be about 5'8", 5'9", 175 pounds in a completely all black outfit jumped in the ring and blasted Moxley and fucking hit a shitty move on him that you could see made no contact and looked like shit compared to all these incredible things they do, the high impact, the superplexes off the roof, the fucking bumps and the dive. This looked like complete shit. And Moxley sold it like he'd been poleaxed and shot with a fucking cannon. The guy 5 giants can be on this guy. He won't go to a knee. But this one minute individual gives him a shitty looking fucking move that doesn't even connect. And he fucking sells it to death. And the guy unmasked. And guess who it is, everybody? It's Kenta. I wish I had crickets on this machine. Reedy, 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 reedy. How about this? The guy takes his mask off, and it's another Japanese midget. And the announcers are going crazy. Oh, my God, it's Kenta. Like anybody in the United States of America, besides the people already watching that program, would know who the fuck Kenta is. It was a big deal. Oh my God, look at it. And you know that the half a dozen people across the country that actually wandered into this thing thinking they were going to see a wrestling program and are sitting there dumbfounded are going, who the fuck is that kid? And he's got purple hair. And that's their bit because he's New Japan's guy. So they think that this is going to make a major difference in their ratings and their wrestling war and whatever. Yes, when I was in Ring of Honor in 2011 and 2012, I wanted to bring the Japanese talent over because I knew that we had a niche product with a niche audience and that they loved the Japanese guys and knew who they were, and that's why I tried to get them to bring them over, but fucking Greg the office boy, being that he was a wrestling expert, said, oh, no, whatever the fucking is too expensive, so okay, fuck you. But I was aware that, yes, that would make a difference in their business, in Ring of Honor's business. This is a national television promotion on TNT television. And in case anybody's forgotten, there's a large segment of people out there that didn't even know Chris Jericho was still fucking wrestling until the program came on after an NBA game. We established that about a month ago. So if they didn't even know that Chris Jericho was still wrestling, you think a lot of them know or give a fuck who little bitty teeny weeny itsy titsy Kenta is? It's like they fucking unmasked CM Punk. Oh, look, oh my God. No, that would make a difference in your business. This is just going to make absolutely no difference in your business because you're going to have more fucking high spots and more fucking Japanese wrestling on the same program with the same amount of people watching it. Do you think even everybody that watches AEW knows who Kenta is?
I think a portion of them do. And again, he was on NXT for a while as...
Was he?
Not since we've been watching. I think he had a concussion problem or he had some kind of injury problem that kept him out. But he was Hideo Itami in NXT. So there are some fans who will know him. I don't think he's a difference maker. Out of all the talent in New Japan, especially putting him in there with Moxley, he's the one that I don't know if I'd be picking Kenta out of all the guys they have there. But again, AEW is trying to open up the door and have that relationship with New Japan. And this is potentially the beginning of that, using Kenta, because he lives in the States and you can get him to the shows easily. He's not one of the guys living in Japan. He lives in the States from working for NXT.
Oh, good God. The point is, people reacted to this. The AEW fans reacted to this like, oh my God, like they just brought out Roddy fucking Piper. They can't admit to themselves that almost nobody in the overall scheme of things knows who the fuck their favorite wrestlers are or wants to watch this horse shit. They just can't admit it.
I don't think their fans are losing their mind because of Kenta. It was more because that means that AEW is working with New Japan.
Okay. Well, that means that Tanahashi and Okada and a bunch of other people that you could scream at the top of your lungs in the middle of the fucking mall are going to come, and nobody's going to know who the fuck they are either.
The core AEW audience will. It won't do anything to increase the audience.
God damn, you mean to tell me that every single person in my restaurant's going to order dinner? I thought they just came to sit around and talk. What about all the people out on the street that I wish were hungry that would come in and order the fucking dinner? Because they've never heard of my food. They don't even know it is food. You tell a wrestling fan, we're going to have Hideo Itami versus Kenta. He's going to, what?
No, Hideo Itami is Kenta.
I don't care. They won't know that either. They are confining themselves to a very small space when they constantly go for a bunch of unheard of, unknown people who have never been exposed on a major league level and treat them automatically like they are stars to the entire world when the average person is going, who the fuck is this? Even wrestling fans don't know who the fuck these people are. They're the queen of love and piss? I've never heard of her before. It's ridiculous. They think that and they are correct in that everyone that they currently have as an audience for this television program or whatever they do, they're correct in thinking that all those people pretty much know who these people are and give a fuck. And therein lies the problem, because that is the sum total of people that know who these fucking nobodies are or give a fuck in the entire country. You're not going to get any fucking more viewers with these people, because wrestling fans who were used to wrestling instead of video game comedy and fucking midgets playing with each other are not going to watch this shit. They're going to be offended by it. Instead of going out and trying to increase your audience by presenting a professional product with talented athletes that look like fucking athletes, that make sense, that interest you in them as people, and has a logical story progression going, and is not insulting your intelligence, or being wacky and stupid and silly, or indulging in middle-aged wannabe rock stars' midlife crises, or a fucking real-life Richie Rich who gets to play with his fucking money in real-life action figures with a goddamn pulse and a heartbeat. This is an embarrassment to wrestling that's getting worse. And as a result of this program and the ridiculous, stupid, big-budget garbage that the WWE is presenting, nobody will ever want to watch wrestling again. That's what the fault I find is with it. They could have tried at least, but that would have been admitting that Tony Khan doesn't know what he's doing and was too stubborn to hire somebody that did. He fell in with the wrong fucking people. The indie outlaw garbage phony comedy wrestlers that just want to grab each other's balls and tickle them while they fucking have fun with each other and do funny things to bring smiles to people's faces. And they hire the wrong talent because they have no eye for it whatsoever. And basically, the fucking billionaire's son goes on the say-so of his fucking friends who want to get all their friends a fucking job. So it's a goddamn amateur hour mixed with a daycare center on one side, and on the other side, you've got a fucking guy that's lost it, had it at once, lost it. Nobody wants to say no to him. And they're doing equally phony, but just not as silly shit. It's more boring instead over on the other channel. So wrestling's fucked. But yet at the same time, you have people out there actually say, oh my God, wrestling's never been greater. We have so many options. We have so many choices. The fuck? More people are wrestlers than ever, that's for sure. Fewer people are actually making serious money at it. Some are making serious money, but when you adjust it for inflation, as we do often, you'll find out that a lot of guys in the 50s and 70s made more money overall. And no, there's never been a time in the United States of America, or as far as I know around the world, where fewer people were actively watching wrestling, professional wrestling in any form, and where there was actually less of it to watch that didn't insult your intelligence and just make you feel bad and need to take a shower for fucking watching it. So what a renaissance. I was in a good mood when we started. Wasn't I?
You were.
Well, let's quit, because I'm not anymore. Do you have anything else to say about this fiasco?
Just going back to the thing with me and Dave, it was after this show that I tweeted out, I understand why people like the wrestlers, people like the matches, but it's a badly put together show. It's badly written. It's badly booked. The entirety of the show. Based on what you just reviewed, am I right or am I wrong?
Well, you know the answer to that question. And did I make up anything that I just saw, or did I report what was presented to the people that were viewing this program?
That's what the show was. That's what the show is every week.
There you have it. Well, that's our show for this week. And by cracky, if we're always this chipper, whenever we start early, I want to start early from now on. As a matter of fact, are we telling the people we're changing the schedule up a little bit?
Well, I was going to ask you, what actually is the schedule this week with the drive-thru, because this is coming out Sunday.
Yes.
What are we doing with this week?
Drive-thru normally comes out Monday. It will come out Tuesday just to give us a break and re-rack and get it out. This week's drive-thru will be Tuesday. Then, this coming week, the experience moves from Fridays to Saturdays. And we've been mulling this over, but it does give us a little bit more time. But also, somebody said, because we've been releasing the drive-thru on Monday and the experience on Friday, and somebody said, but we've been late lately, so they said, why don't you just go to a permanent thing where Tuesday and Saturday? But then somebody said, well, then we wouldn't get the programs till Sunday and Wednesday. Which there's something to be said for that. But from here on out, going forward, we are moving to the schedule where the drive-thru will come out on Tuesdays, correct?
Oh, I thought we were keeping the drive-thru on Mondays. I don't know.
Are we keeping the drive-thru? Well, God damn it, I don't know. The next experience.
We should probably talk about these
We should probably talk about this. All right, I've got this all written down somewhere. But the point is, this week, drive-thru on Tuesday, experience going to Saturday this coming weekend, and we'll figure it out from there. And remember, action figures coming in the middle of March. JimCornette.com, Cornette's collectible store, reopening. A limited number of cameos will be put on sale around the 1st of March. Details on this coming up in the next few weeks. And no matter what day they come out, you still get 2 fine full-length programs every week from me and you, Brian. You just can't hardly fart at that, can you?
I guess not.
I guess you can.
I guess
All
you
right.
can.
And in the meantime and in between time, until then, any last words, Brian?
No, I'm good.
All right. Well, I'm good too. Folks, we'll see you next week, whatever that day may be. Thank you. Fuck you. Bye-bye, everybody. Hey, hold on. We just made a mistake. The drive-thru this week is not coming out on Tuesday. It's coming out on Wednesday. And then it'll go back to Tuesday. Or possibly the Monday that it was beforehand.
Or Monday, I thought.
That's what I just said.
This is so
But
confusing.
not this week. So this week, the drive-thru will be out on Wednesday. Right?
It's probably a good idea if you don't follow Jim or me on Twitter to follow us if you want show updates on when these shows are coming out as we figure things out.
But they'll be good. Don't worry. All right, we're out of the show again. Good day.